Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see you guys back. Welcome back. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. We're going to start today with meditation, just like we do each day. We're going to do our chanting, and then I'll provide you guidance. There'll be that period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of that with some more chanting. And then afterwards, I'm going to share with you guys the Eightfold Path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. If you're interested in getting to this enlightened mental state, you would need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. So I'm going to really take my time walking you through this over the course of the entire morning. It'll take me 2.5 hours to teach that to you. We're going to take a break in the middle, but we're going to really take our time walking through that so you guys can get the help that you need to understand this path. Then we're going to take our lunch break. And when we come back, I'm going to teach you guys meditation, because by that point you will have had 3 opportunities to be able to meditate with me. And then it's a great time for you to be able to understand meditation, because you'll understand where it fits into the Eightfold Path as well. So if you'd like to join in the chanting, you're more than welcome to. You guys know the chanting sheets are over there. And then I'm going to come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso emakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusrang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, good morning. Welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone online as well. I'm going to help you guys to understand the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you would need to know inside and out in order to be able to make your way towards enlightenment. This is a teaching that you're going to need to learn multiple times. It's not something that you can learn just one time and you got it. And not only are you going to need to learn it multiple times, but it's going to be effort to be able to apply this in your day-to-day life. So this is a teaching that you would like to focus on when you first get started on the path to enlightenment and really making sure that you understand it in depth. As I go, I'm going to be pausing at different times, helping you guys to be able to get answers to your questions that you need. So remember, if you guys could use the microphones here, and then anybody online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. You know, the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is that he's helping you to cultivate wisdom about the natural laws of existence. The natural laws is what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach rules and commandments. He's not trying to convince you to do any particular thing. He's helping you to be able to see that the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, then you will be able to train your mind and be able to make your way to this enlightened mental state. These natural laws don't change. They're the same natural laws that existed during the lifetime of the Buddha that exist now. So what it is that he described as these natural laws is what's going to help you to be able to awaken, cultivating the wisdom that you need in order to be able to train your mind. These natural laws are something that the unenlightened mind is unaware of. This is the unknowing of true reality reality or the lack of wisdom that the mind has. And when we lack wisdom about natural laws, we'll tend to go out into the world and make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for us. So in this Eightfold Path, what he's helping you to be able to see is the natural laws so that you can be able to navigate the world more and more peacefully, training your mind and interacting with people in a way that's nice and comfortable, that's nice and relaxed, that's not causing harm to others. So just like when we were children, when we didn't know the natural laws, we struggled and had difficulties. The unenlightened mind will struggle and have difficulties when it doesn't understand these natural laws that the Buddha has embedded into the Eightfold Path. The natural law of gravity is something that we struggled with because we didn't understand it when we were first growing up. And that's why we fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, we cried and cried and cried because we lived in a world that we didn't understand. We struggled and had difficulties. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. We never believed in it, but we could see the truth for ourselves that it actually existed. And then as we gained wisdom in this natural law, we started making wiser and wiser decisions. As we got to 10, 12, 14 years old, we understood to tie our shoes nice and tight. We stopped bouncing around and being so giddy as a little kid. We started looking at the surface of the sidewalk as we were walking. And now we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we understand this natural law. We make wiser decisions related to it. So we no longer struggle and have difficulties. We understand the world that we live in related to this natural law of gravity. But there's other natural laws that are affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. And what you're going to see here in the Eightfold Path is the Buddha's helping you to be able to see these natural laws. And by not believing them, but instead learning, examining, and investigating, by reflecting to independently verify, and through practicing, starting to make decisions based in these natural laws, this is where you're going to see the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. Your relationships are going to drastically improve, but you need to be able to make sure that you're listening with eager ears, that you're not just, sitting back, relaxing. I mean, you can relax, of course, but just sitting back and just thinking that the waves of the Buddha's knowledge is going to roll over you. You need to actually actively be involved in your learning. That's what's going to help you to be able to awaken or cultivate the wisdom of these natural laws. So this Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that the Buddha shares that has 8 individual factors, and it's organized into 3 individual sections. I'm going to walk you through each one of these. It's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And it's organized in the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. The way that you might think about this Eightfold Path is that if you had a speaker system and you had 8 dials and you were trying to get a better quality sound out of the speakers, you would tweak these 8 dials trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. But that's the same thing that you can do with your mind, is that you can tweak these 8 dials in order to be able to get a better and better performing mind. This is where the mind becomes focused and concentrated with clarity of mind and deep memory, because you're dialing these 8 individual factors into your life more and more closely. So you're going to need to learn it multiple times and then tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and get to the point where you're practicing it more and more closely in each individual situation. I'm going to start here with right view because this is the foundation that will provide all the ability for you to then cultivate all the other factors. If you didn't understand right view, you won't understand anything the Buddha has to share with you about the teachings and how to actually move your mind to enlightenment. So I'm going to help you to be able to understand this. And then we're going to walk our way through this entire path over the course of the morning. And as I mentioned, you guys are more than welcome to ask questions as we go, because I'm going to pause several times as we go. So first, here's the words of the Buddha on right view, because it's so important whenever you're studying the teachings of the Buddha that you study with his original words. If you're not studying with the original words of the Buddha, you would never know what did he teach and what he didn't teach. And I know that sounds pretty obvious when I say it, but you'd be surprised. The vast majority of the world doesn't study with the original words of the Buddha. So it's so important that you study with his original words using reliable translations. So here's his words on right view. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, in the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. So what he's doing here is he's pointing to another teaching, and he's saying that's right view. He's pointing to what's called the Four Noble Truths. That's what's considered right view. In four simple statements in the Four Noble Truths, you can understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So what I've done here is underneath of this line, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. So you can see that what he's doing here in the Eightfold Path is he's pointing to this other teaching, because there's more below this where the Buddha is sharing the Four Noble Truths. So what I'm going to do with you is help you to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths, so that then you'll know that it's right view, and you can do what's called establishing right view. So in order to teach you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first teach you the three universal truths. We call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But you need to know they're true, and that's why you're not interested in believing these. Understanding that the Buddha is trying to help you to understand the way the world is, not the way the world should be, and that if everybody does things a certain way, this is the way the world should be, but he's explaining to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, you won't struggle and have difficulties in the world any longer. But when the mind is experiencing stress and anxiety and frustration and guilt and shame and fear and all these other feelings, that's the mind struggling in a world that it doesn't understand. So you need to be able to understand the way the world is. And that's what the Buddha is going to help you to see through these truths. And you can independently verify these. So I'm going to show you how to do this, starting with this first one. This is called the universal truth of impermanence. What this is helping you to be able to understand about the world is that the world is impermanent. It's constantly changing. That there's going to be something called conditioned objects that arise, they change, and then they fade away. They're temporary. Things are constantly changing in the world around you. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, these are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. It's called conditioned objects. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. The natural laws of existence are that way, and enlightenment itself. They are unconditioned. That the natural laws that existed during the lifetime of the Buddha are the same exact natural laws that exist today. This is why his teachings are timeless. Now, people's memories of his teachings and the books and resources that people use, those things have all changed, and people have gotten farther and farther away from his teachings. But the natural laws themselves that he originally described, those haven't changed. So the natural laws themselves, they are unconditioned. They don't arise, change, or fade away. And the same thing with enlightenment. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is unconditioned. You've purified the mind of the causes and conditions that are producing discontentedness. So this is why it's a permanent mental state by the time you get to enlightenment. It doesn't arise, change, or fade away. But everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, these are all conditioned objects. They arise, change, and fade away. Okay, so this is the intellectual part of understanding the universal truth of impermanence. This is where you're investigating and examining it. But now you move it into reflection, because you're not interested in believing what I'm sharing, right? Don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything I write in books. Don't believe anything anybody else says. Because belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. But now let's move into reflection, where you can independently verify this for yourself. What I suggest you do is you take something that you're very familiar with, like this human body. You're very familiar with this. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning that it never changes, or is this body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is the body permanent or impermanent? What's that? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. Ever since the egg and sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get wrinkles and moles and pimples. We get taller and shorter. Our teeth grow in, then they fall out. Then new teeth grow in, right? Then we get cavities. This is constant change with the body. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, then that means you've had exactly the same people in your life, and you will have those same people in your life your entire life. Or if your relationships are impermanent, that means people have been coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People are constantly coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is this permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent. Yeah, it's going up and down and up and down, right? Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, down, down. It's constantly changing, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's sunny, it's raining. Some places it's snowing and sleeting and hail and typhoons and hurricanes and all kinds of things, right? Everything's constantly changing with the weather. So we could go on and on and on here. And if that's what you need to do in order to be able to independently verify this, you should. You should look around the world and try to see what you can see, because if you can find something in this material world that is permanent, then this isn't a universal truth. So you can look at the planks on the wood floor of the temple. Some of them are longer and shorter. Some of them are different colors, different texture. When you're walking down the street or walking down the sidewalk, you can see a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence, right? We had certain people that were here in the class yesterday, and now we have different people that are here today, right? This is constant change. Everything's constantly changing. So you need to be able to see that, because this is going to be a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. You're going to need to understand this and be able to independently verify it for yourself so that you know it's true. You don't believe in it, but you have the wisdom to know that the world around you is constantly changing. Then we've got the second universal truth. It's called discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering, if you've ever studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, but I don't use that word because it doesn't accurately describe what the Buddha is teaching here. I'll explain to you what this is, and then I will circle back and help you to understand why I don't use the word suffering. So in the original teachings of the Buddha, the word dukkha is being used. This translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. What the Buddha is describing is what the unenlightened mind experiences, that it experiences conditioned feelings, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. These are conditioned, meaning they're based on some condition. You will then experience a feeling. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. It's very pleasant to experience those feelings, and they're based on some condition. Like maybe if it's sunny outside, you'll get so happy and excited. Or maybe if your bank account balance is up here, you'll get really happy and excited, right? Or maybe if some favorite friend or family relative is coming to visit you, maybe you get so happy and excited because they're coming to visit you. Very pleasant, but it's based on a condition, that this condition needs to be met, and then you will be happy. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. And these are also conditioned feelings that based on some condition, the mind is then going to experience a feeling. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. Shyness is a good example of neither painful nor pleasant. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or say you were on public transportation and somebody you didn't know came in and they sat really, really close to you and your body was touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Okay, so this is the three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. And these are conditioned feelings that based on some condition, the mind is going to experience pleasantness, painfulness, or neither painful nor pleasant. And what the mind's doing here is it's forming these inner feelings based on some condition. So for example, if an unenlightened being wakes up in the morning and they see it's sunny outside, they might get really happy and really excited about that, right? And they're like, man, I'm going to go hiking today. There's this hiking trail that I've been wanting to go on for a long time, and it's sunny. I'm going to call my friends. It's going to be so great. I'm going to go hiking today. Yay. And then you go take a shower, this person who's unenlightened, and then they come out and they see it's raining. And now they're frustrated and angry. Can't go hiking, right? These are conditioned feelings. The mind's going up and down based on some condition. If it's sunny outside, they're happy. But if it's not sunny, they're angry, sad, or frustrated. An enlightened being is beyond this. Their mind doesn't experience conditioned feelings. An enlightened being would already be happy and joyful when they wake up in the morning. They're having unconditioned happiness, that there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to be happy. Now, when they see it's sunny outside, it's like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to call my friends. This is going to be great. I've been interested in going on this hiking trip for a while, or going out on this trail for a while. So now you go take a shower as an enlightened being, and you come out and you see it's raining. Oh, okay, it's raining. Well, guess I'm not going hiking. Maybe I should call my friends, let them know that, hey, they're welcome to come over for dinner, make some food, or maybe I'll go to the mall and hang out at the mall, or maybe I'll just stay home and read a book. I won't even call my friends and let them know that I was thinking of going hiking. But nonetheless, you'll be able to maintain your happiness and maintain your peacefulness and joy because you didn't base your happiness on the sun. If you base your happiness on the sun, you can only be happy when it's sunny outside. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition, and that condition is impermanent, right? So an enlightened being is beyond this. So there's these pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. This is called discontentedness. The mind is shaken up. It's uncalm. It's unsteady. Have you guys ever been so excited you like tripped and fell? Or you like dropped something and broke it? Have you ever experienced that before? Yeah, Yihang says, yeah. Yep, you can see the mind shaken up. So you need to be able to see these pleasant feelings, these conditioned pleasant feelings, as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. What is happening here is the mind can only be happy if some condition is met. And then when that condition isn't met, it's going to end up in the painful feelings, right? So for example, if you get really happy and excited about that brand new job that you're getting, it's got a great salary, a great title, great company, great coworkers, great location, great office. If you get really excited about that, the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner, because that job is not permanent. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whenever it is that you lose the job or the company closes, they go out of business, they lay you off, or whatever happens, you're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated and agitated and annoyed, or some other painful feeling, because you allowed your mind to get excited and happy when you got the job, and that's not permanent. Or if, say, your mom calls you up and says, hey, I'm going to come visit you. I heard you got a new house. I would like to come over your house and make some food because I know you really like that dish that I've been making ever since you were a child, and I'm going to come and make that food for you. And you're like, oh, this is going to be so great. Yay, mom's coming to visit, right? Well, then when she calls you on Friday and says, hey, I'm so sorry I can't come. Plans have changed. I'm not going to be able to come see you this weekend. Now you'll be frustrated and angry, right? So the mind, if you allow it to get conditioned pleasant feelings, it will get the painful ones. So you need to be able to see the pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. But remember, they're conditional, right? Essentially what the unenlightened mind is saying is, if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if I have this much money in my bank account, if I have this kind of house, this kind of car, if I have this many friends, then I will be happy, right? So your ability to be happy shrinks because they're conditional, right? You're laying out all these conditions of what it takes for you to be happy. So this is what the unenlightened mind does. And you can sometimes see people that are very old and grumpy and irritable. This is because they have so many of these conditions in their mind that they need to be met in order to be happy. So the enlightened mind is beyond this, where there's unconditional happiness or unconditioned joy. And that's what it is that you're working towards, to be able to train your mind to no longer experience conditioned happiness, but instead to just always be happy and always be joyful. That's what the Eightfold Path is going to help you to be able to do. And this is why we need to use this word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because the word suffering doesn't explain this. The word suffering explains the painful feelings really well. When you're angry or sad or feeling guilt or shame or fear or stress, anxiety, you might say you're suffering. But if you got a raise at work, like if your boss came in and said, hey, I'm going to give you $20,000 more per year, and you got really excited about that, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? Or if that person you don't know came and sat really close to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. So if you use the word suffering, as has been used in the past, you're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha taught about this important topic. You would be missing 66% of his teachings. So if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment? So I encourage you to use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because it's going to bring your mind to the full understanding of all the feelings and emotions that the Buddha is really talking about in regards to this particular universal truth. He's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. Now, remember, you don't believe this, right? You're just listening to me in order to be able to intellectually understand what it is that I'm sharing with you. But now you need to move it into reflection to be able to independently verify whether what I'm sharing with you is true or if it's false. So you know your mind's unenlightened. Ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings that are conditional, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant? If there's a certain feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, let me know and I will help you so that way we can talk about it and discuss it. Okay? So this is the second universal truth, which is discontentedness, explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. Now, the third universal truth, I apologize, it's a little bit off the screen. I think the projector must have been adjusted a little bit, but I can explain it to you. It's called non-self. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. Remember those 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind called the 10 fetters? I introduced these to you yesterday. There's 10 individual pollutions or 10 individual fetters. They're referred to as fetters because of the shackle and the chain and the ball that was placed around a prisoner's ankle during the lifetime of the Buddha in order to keep that person confined to a certain area. Where today we put people in prison cells and jail cells, where back then they would just put a fetter around your ankle. So the Buddha describes these pollutions in the mind as a fetter because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. So this universal truth of non-self is the solution to one of those fetters. So let me first explain to you the fetter or the problem, and then I'll explain to you the solution. Okay? So this first fetter is called personal existence view. Personal existence view is where the mind is clinging to this body or to the mind itself, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. It's craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is confused and has a misunderstanding, thinking that this self-image or this self-identity is you and who you are as a person. So, for example, if you've ever been in a social situation and you spilled spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothing and you were embarrassed in this situation, this is your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you can only feel comfortable if you're being perceived that way. Or if you were ever in front of a mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple, or maybe you got gray hair or you started gaining weight or something like that, you might have been shaken up by that. That's by clinging to this body, wanting others to perceive you a certain way, thinking that this body is who you are as a person, where in reality that's not actually true, but the mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. Or if you've ever stood in front of your closet thinking about what you're going to wear today because you're imagining who you're going to see and how you want to be perceived by those people, you might have rifled through your clothing, put on different sets of clothing, looked in the mirror and decided whether or not you would like to wear these clothes because you wanted to be perceived by somebody in a certain way. So this is the mind clinging to the body, and now the mind thinks that this is who you are as a person. Then there's the self-identity. This is your culture, your ethnicity, sexual orientation, your nationality, maybe your job or occupation, any number of things the mind can cling to as a self-identity and who you think you are as a person. And now if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived, you'll feel great. But if not, then you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So, for example, if you cling to the idea of I am a boyfriend, or I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, I am a wife, and now when you're in the relationship, you feel somewhat comfortable. But when you guys break up, you might have feel kind of lost and confused because your mind doesn't identify with I am single. And now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But that doesn't solve the problem because the personal existence view is what's causing the mind to feel uncomfortable, that it's clinging to this idea that I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. And now when you're single, the mind doesn't like that. And it wants to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. Or say your nationality, like I am German, or I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am Canadian, I am Israeli, any of this I am around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. And now if you're maybe at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying something pleasant and agreeable to you about any of the things that you have in your mind that is your identity, you'll feel really great about that. Maybe they say all Chinese people are lovely and kind and warm and gentle, right? And you're like, wow, I am Chinese, right? But then 2 tables over in the same restaurant, somebody's saying something degrading or disparaging about the nationality that you're clinging to in your mind of who you think you are. And now you're angry or frustrated or irritated. So this is the mind having personal existence view. You might even cling to like your job or occupation, like I am a police officer. And as long as you're doing that job, you feel great. But when you're out there maybe driving a taxi, your mind doesn't identify that way. Maybe you got fired or laid off or injured and you can't do that job anymore. And now when you're driving the taxi, you don't feel comfortable doing that because your mind identifies with I am a police officer. There's any number of things that you can cling to. One time I had a student that was having trouble with this. He said that I am a great tipper. And when he goes places where he's tipping, he feels great and he feels comfortable. But then when he doesn't tip, maybe there's a certain place that they want a tip or they're asking for a tip and he doesn't tip, he feels uncomfortable in those situations because in his mind, he identified with I am a great tipper. And now he can only feel comfortable when he's tipping, right? So this personal existence view is your mind clinging to a self-image or a self-identity of who you think you are. And what the Buddha is teaching you is in the universal truth of non-self, that there is no self, that none of this stuff is who you are as a person. There is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this life, this existence. We might call the combination of this body and mind a person or a human being, but this doesn't define who you are. So as long as you cling to any of this as who you are, you can't be peaceful and joyful permanently because all this stuff is going to change. This is where sometimes people get to the point where they might go to their friends and family in their home country and they say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. And they sometimes come to places like Thailand in order to find themselves. But you're not going to find yourself here because it doesn't exist. You might find new hobbies, new jobs, new friends, new activities. And you might go home and say, wow, I found myself, Mom and Dad. I know who I am again. Hey, friends and family, I know who I am. I found myself, right? But you haven't actually found yourself. All you've done is got a new job, new hobbies, new activities, and new friends. As soon as all those things change 5 years later, then you don't know who you are again, right? So anytime you cling to something as who you think you are, all that stuff's going to change. And now your mind's going to be lost and confused. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that there is no self. And you need to get to the point where you realize non-self, that this body is not you, this mind is not you. So this body was born on a certain land. There was a certain earth that we were born on, certain dirt, certain soil. And someone might say, you are American, or you are Chinese, or you are German, or what have you. That's just the name of that land. That's how we refer to that land, so everybody knows what we're talking about. Our mind doesn't need to adopt the identity of I am American. Even though this body was born on a certain soil, it doesn't mean the mind has to adopt that identity. So even though I live in this country of Thailand, I don't have to adopt the identity of I am a resident of Thailand. Because now when you're searching Facebook and somebody says, all people who live in Thailand are blah, 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 you'll get frustrated, you'll get angry if you cling to that identity of who you think you are. So it's a matter of fulfilling these certain roles and doing these certain things while not allowing your mind to identify with this as who you are. So this is the universal truth of non-self. And some people understand it when I first start explaining it, and some people don't. If you don't understand it, it's okay, because your mind's taken a lot of time to be able to accumulate a self over the course of your life, that ever since we were born, we were given labels. I don't know what your label is, but the label I was given was David, right? And now we start having this character and this personality and all these other things that we assign to that. So we might cheer for sports teams, right? Depending on what country we grew up in, we might cheer for a sports team when we watch the Olympics or some other, world sports competition. We have national anthems and flags and all these other things that the mind has been adopting this identity of who you think you are for so long. You're not going to always be able to see it so clearly right away when you first start learning about this. But you can independently verify that there is no self. So let me help you with that. So that was the intellectual learning that we just did. Now let's go to the reflection. Okay. So ask yourself, when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and now, have you seen yourself as exactly the same during all those 4 phases of your life? Or the view that you have of yourself, has it been constantly changing? What would you say? It's been changing, right? You haven't viewed yourself in exactly the same way through all those 4 phases of your life. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Say no. No. What do you guys say? No, you're not less of a person, right? So here you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you, because otherwise you would answer that question very differently. If this body is you and you have less body, when you are asked the question, if your arm is amputated, are you less of a person? You would say, yes, I'm less of a person because there's less body, so therefore there's less me, right? But you didn't answer it that way. Intellectually, you understand this body is not you. But in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something about this body, you either get pleasant feelings or painful feelings. They might say, wow, that shirt looks so great on you. It brings out the colors of your eyes. And you're like, wow, they're talking about me. You get all these pleasant feelings. But then it's only a matter of time before somebody says, where did you get that haircut? Oh my gosh, it looks horrible on you, right? And now you're angry and frustrated. They're not talking about you. They're just talking about this body, right? So your mind gets confused in that moment. So intellectually, you can understand this body is not you, but in the heat of the moment, your mind has that confusion or that misunderstanding, that misperception, thinking that this body or this mind is you. That's the personal existence view. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize this body is not you. Here's a third way you can independently verify this. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Where are you? Maybe everyone's realized non-self already. So sometimes people point here or they point here, right? They might say, I am here, right? So you got to look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt, right? Ask yourself, if you took off your shirt and you held it up and pointed to it, is that you? Is that who you are? That shirt that you're wearing? That's not you, right? So, okay, let's throw away the shirt. That's not you, because we're looking for you. We're trying to find you, right? Where are you? And someone might point again. Well, what are you pointing to? You're pointing to skin. So ask yourself, is that who you are? That skin that you've got there, is that you? That's not you either, right? So, okay, throw away the skin. Let's get rid of the skin. Where are you? And someone might point again. You've got ribs, you've got muscle tissue, you've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you, but your mind has this confusion or misperception thinking that these things are you, and you're clinging to these things, wanting these to be you. Right? And now the mind has that confusion in the heat of the moment. So ultimately, over time, you need to be able to strip this away where you realize non-self. And there, your mind can be completely peaceful. If someone says, wow, you look so beautiful, you look so handsome in that shirt, it really brings out the color of your eyes. You might say, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words, right? But you know that this isn't you. But then when someone says, wow, you look so horrible, where'd you get that haircut? Not talking about me, because this being doesn't exist. I mean, this being is here, of course, but they're not talking about me. One time I came out of my house and I was walking to the basketball court to see my son, and we were going to play basketball. And one of my neighbors came out of the house and he said, wow, David, you are so fat. I said, yep, sure am. And just kept on walking, right? Just smiled and laughed, right? That's what you can do when your mind doesn't have this concept of who you think you are as a person, right? But if you cling to this body, wanting others to perceive you a certain way, when you hear that, you're going to be upset. You're going to be frustrated, right? So this is how you can train your mind to get to the point where you don't cling to any of this, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. Right? Now, obviously, it's unwise to talk to people like that. That's what you're going to learn as part of the Eightfold Path. But you're going to have people that talk to you in unfriendly ways sometimes, right? It's going to happen. And your mind can reside peaceful and joyful if you don't have this concept of a self in your mind and you can realize non-self. Okay, so let me pause here and see if you guys have questions on these three universal truths. Remember, if you guys could use the mics here and online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically. So do you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask about any of these? Leo has a question.
Yeah, you talking a lot about you make this example with the body, the skin and the bones and so on. For me, it's more difficult to see it with the mind. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also impermanent, but yeah. And if I would point at me, I would say everything is me. I would think that way, not like.
That's the personal existence view. And
right.
You need to get to the point where you can see that this isn't you, that this body isn't you, the mind isn't you, even the decisions you make and how you make them, that isn't you either. That's going to help you to be able to cultivate the elimination of the personal existence view and realize non-self, but it's also going to help you cultivate loving kindness for all beings, because you can separate the choices and decisions that people make from the person themselves, where you can love the being or the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions. And you can see that a person's choices and decisions doesn't define who they are as a person. So like if we've used drugs and alcohol in the past, someone might say, I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. No, this being used to use drugs and alcohol in the past and made those choices, but that doesn't define who I am. Essentially, the mind's trying to put a label on your forehead to determine who you think you are as a person. Even some people might say, I am Buddhist, right? No, I am not Buddhist, right? This being chooses to practice the teachings of the Buddha, but that doesn't define who I am. So whenever you put the I am in front of something, that's your mind clinging to a personal existence view. So you need to be able to see that any of this stuff in your mind that you're clinging to as a potential identity, it doesn't define you. Because someone might say, I am German. No, this body was born in a place that we refer to as Germany, but it wasn't always called Germany, and it won't always be called Germany, right? It'll change over time. So your mind doesn't have to adopt this identity. And there's any number of other things that your mind might be clinging to. So you just need to be able to see how that doesn't define this being and who this being is.
It makes somehow sense because everything is changing and are different now and so on. So I see that these are not fixed things.
As soon as you cling to anything, thinking that that's who you are, it's going to change, right? All of that's going to change. So that's why the Buddha is teaching you how to get to a point where you're not holding on and clinging to any of those things.
Choices and decisions, it's not me doesn't define me, but it's this person who is choosing these things, of course.
Yeah, this mind is making decisions and making choices, but that doesn't define who this being is, right? So, the drugs and alcohol is a perfect example, right? Sometimes people adopt the identity of I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. No, that's not true. That the fact that you made those choices in the past doesn't define who you are today as a person. Or someone who's maybe broken the law and they went to jail, they went to prison, they might think I am a felon or I am a criminal, right? No, those are choices and decisions you made in the past, and you can choose not to do those things any longer. But if you identify with these things as who you think you are, you'll experience guilt and shame and fear and things like this. So you can train your mind to not cling to the idea that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. And now in the present moment, you can experience peace and joy, just understanding those are decisions that you made, but it doesn't define who you are as a person. Yang?
So what defines who you are, or what the beings? Or there's no such thing of a definition of beings?
We can understand that there is a body and that there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence. And we refer to this as a person. Like I see a person in front of me, right? But that shirt you're wearing, those pants you're wearing, how much money you have in your bank account, your hairstyle, where you live, where this being was born, that doesn't define who you are as a person. And when you're able to do that for yourself, now you can be at ease and you can be comfortable. But the thing is that the mind in the unenlightened state, because of its personal existence view, is going to keep trying to grasp on something. It's going to keep trying to grab something as who you think you are, because it thinks there's some kind of stability in that. And it wants to identify with something as who you are. It wants to hold on to something. So you need to be able to get to the point, and it takes training. Sometimes it takes people a year just to even understand this before they even start training their mind to let it go. But you need to get to the point where you aren't trying to grasp for something as who you think you are. And this is going to not only help you have loving kindness, like I mentioned, help you to eliminate discontentedness related to this body, but it's going to help you to eliminate any kind of ego too, and judging other people through the characteristics of their physical appearance, how much money they have in their bank account, their role in society, their job or occupation, because oftentimes the unenlightened mind will judge all those kinds of things. But when you see that that doesn't define a person and who they are, that you just understand that these are things that you have done or things that you are doing, but you don't allow your mind to cling to it as who you think you are. That's what you would like to be able to get to. But just understand your mind's going to keep trying to grasp for something. Someone says, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then who am I? Yeah. That's the mind still grasping. The mind still having personal existence view, trying to find something to grab onto.
Okay, I understand all those descriptions of who I am is impermanent. They're constantly changing.
It's constantly changing. Yeah. There's nothing that you can grab onto and say, this is me, because all of it's impermanent. And as soon as you grab onto it and you think that is you, now you're either going to get pleasant feelings or painful feelings related to either agreeable or disagreeable contact related to that.
And can I also understand that the state of my enlightenment can define me? Yeah,
even that's another thing. If someone says, I am enlightened, or like we were talking about yesterday, there's no I. So what's actually experiencing enlightenment is the mind. It's not I am enlightened. It's the mind is experiencing the qualities of enlightenment. So there's no I here to actually be enlightened. It's the mind that is experiencing the qualities of enlightenment. So one of the challenges we have is we say things like, I am hungry, right? You might say that, I am hungry. That's not true, because there's no I here. But the English language is kind of unfitting to really explain this. So what's really truly occurring is that the body needs food. That's what's truly occurring. Or instead of I am angry, what's really occurring is the mind is experiencing anger. But because of the way the English language is structured, we tend to use this I am. So in Thai language, which Thai language was created about 500 years ago, Buddhism came here about 800 to 1200 years ago. So when they recreated the Thai language, they created it with the understanding of Buddhism and what needs to happen for the mind to be able to experience enlightenment. When somebody speaks in Thai, we speak in the third person. So when my son comes home from school, when he used to go to school, I wouldn't say, how was your day at school? Right? Because that's assuming that there is a you. Instead, I would say, how was Bailan's day at school? Referring to him in the third person, to himself, right? So this is how the Thai language is created, and it helps your mind to do this shift where you disassociate with any of this as being I. So with the English language, you're going to need to essentially change the way that you talk to a certain degree. So you say things like, the body needs food. Let me go find some food. Or, the mind is experiencing anger, instead of I am hungry or I am angry, because that's not true. It's not true reality. But the unenlightened mind, with its lack of wisdom and personal existence view and confusion, will say these things, and then it gets more confused.
I have a question in terms of practicing of the on the way to enlightenment, regarding this discontentness. Your mind go up and down. Is that considered as an improvement if my mind, the chart, less up and down? Is that considered improvement? Or at the end of the day, do you think the enlightenment means your line is way up on the top or on the zero?
So by the time you get to enlightenment, you won't have any of these conditioned feelings where your mind is forming a feeling based on a condition. Your mind will just always be cheerful, glad, bright, uplifted. It'll be radiant, where you just always have gladness in your mind. That's why I don't describe enlightenment as happiness or ultimate bliss. That's the way some people describe it, because you understand conditional happiness and excitement where it's like, oh, I'm so happy. And you go, boom, but then you drop back off of that too, because it's conditional. The happiness that's in the enlightened mental state is the mind is bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted, but it's not that bouncing off the walls happiness. That's not what enlightenment is. It's the mind's cheerful and bright and uplifted and glad, right? So, and that's unconditioned. From the moment you wake up all day long and when you're going to sleep at night, always cheerful, always bright, always glad, right? That's why they call Thailand the land of smiles. Have you heard that? Right? Because it's very easy to smile when you're inwardly joyful and you're inwardly peaceful and cheerful. It's easy to smile, right? So it comes from this unconditioned happiness. It's a mental state that you experience as enlightenment rather than a feeling. A feeling is impermanent. It arises, changes, and fades away, where a mental state that you've accomplished that is unconditioned, it's a permanent mental state where the mind's always cheerful, glad, bright, uplifted. That's what you're experiencing in the enlightened mental state. So you're not experiencing any of these conditional feelings.
You get there, on the way you get there, is your emotion less bouncing back and forth, like on the way?
Yeah. So when we were talking about those 4 stages of enlightenment yesterday, and then there's the jhanas that lead into the 4th stage of enlightenment. Those are the 4 preliminary phases the mind experiences on the way to the 1st stage of enlightenment. Your discontentedness is diminishing and diminishing and diminishing and diminishing, where you don't have these extremes, highs and lows. The mind's coming more and more towards the middle. But sometimes when we talk about bringing the mind to the middle, people think you must just be numb and mute as part of enlightenment, and it's not true. Your mind is uplifted and bright and cheerful and glad, but your mind's not bouncing up and down like this. Yep.
I was thinking back to the non-self when you said the decisions or you made doesn't define you. Then when we sometimes talk like actions speaks louder than the words? Is that sort of actually people defining people by actions?
The actions are something that is going to determine what it is that you experience in life. Your actions will, and you can observe someone's actions to know what's going on within their own mind. But that still doesn't define the person themselves. Those are decisions that a person is making, and then that helps you to be able to see what's going on in their mind, but it doesn't define them as who they are as a person. Because like I mentioned, there's the body, there's the mind, and we call this a person, but it's important that you don't put labels on people or on yourself. That's what personal existence view is, where you're adopting all these labels of who you think you are, and you would like to shed those. And when you do shed those for yourself, you also notice that you don't do that to other people, that you don't put labels on other people. Like, oh, that person is this or that person is that. You don't put labels on people in that way. So that's what you would ultimately like to be able to get to, is that even though someone has certain actions and you see someone who maybe steals or lies or something like that, but you don't label them as, any one particular way, that's going to help you to not judge them and not have conceit where you're putting yourself above them and looking down on them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think one of the mics in the bowl is still on, just so you guys know. We might start getting feedback at some point. Okay, so now there's one more thing to be able to learn before I help you to understand the Four Noble Truths, where you can have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing these discontent feelings. So this word craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, clinging, holding, grasping. You need to be able to understand what this is. This is an aspect of the mind where the mind's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, pulling towards the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind chases and chases and chases and chases. So if you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Oh, I can't wait to get those. Oh, that's going to be so great. Or maybe it was a video game or a piece of jewelry or article of clothing where your mind was pulling towards this thing, thinking something external was going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the craving, desire, attachment is the way the mind pulls towards something. It's not the object itself, right? So the craving, desire, attachment isn't the mobile phone. It's the mind longing, yearning for the mobile phone, thinking like, oh, if I can just get the new iPhone 17, oh, everything's going to be so much better in my life. Oh, I just can't wait to get that phone. It's going to make everything better, right? Or those brand new pair of shoes. Oh, I just can't wait to get those shoes. Oh, it's going to make everything so much better, right? That's the mind pulling towards this. Sometimes you might think, I know what I need to feel better. A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, that'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. And now the mind chases that for a while. And it's like, oh, I know what I need. More money. That's what'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So the mind longs and yearns for that. Or, oh, a bigger house. That'll fix everything. A new car, new jewelry, new clothes. That'll fix everything. Let me chase that for a while. You guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this where your mind's pulling towards something, thinking that this external thing is going to provide lasting satisfaction? So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. You know what I'm talking about? You sure? Okay. All right. Good. Because you guys all have experienced this, that you may or may not be aware of it right now. Okay. So now let's work towards this breakthrough where you can understand the problem in the mind, the cause of this problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So the problem that everyone is experiencing in the unenlightened state is this discontentedness. That's the problem. The mind's going up and down and up and down, up and down. It's conditional feelings. It's only a matter of time before you get annoyed or frustrated or irritated or some other discontent feeling. That's what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. Sure, you have periods of peace and joy here or there, but it's only a matter of time before something happens and your mind gets triggered. That's the problem, that the mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. And in those situations where it's experiencing that, you make unwise decisions and it produces unwholesome results. You might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people, damaging your relationships. That's the problem. The mind is shaken up. It's discontent, experiencing conditioned feelings. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of this. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything is impermanent. I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples. Discontentedness, the conditioned feelings, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by craving, desire, attachment. Because the mind is longing, yearning. It's chasing after the objects of your affection. And if the mind gets what it wants, because it's craving that permanence, if it gets what it wants, it's happy, it's excited, it's elated. That's the pleasant feelings. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings, the anger, sadness, frustration, and others, because it's craving permanence. So here's some examples. Think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, oh, it was so great. There were so many pleasant feelings. You got this new person in your life that's showing you affection. They're sending you text messages. They're calling you. They're checking in on you. They're inviting you to the dinner, to movies. You guys are going to the park. You're having great conversations. You might be having intimate contact. Wow, so much pleasure based on the condition that I have this boyfriend or girlfriend in my life. Right? There's pleasantness there. But then over time, this relationship deteriorates. And now you guys break up and you go your separate ways. And now you might be angry or sad or frustrated. Or you might be lonely or bored. Or you might be missing this person. It's not your love that was causing that or your care. What it was the mind was craving permanence. It was holding on to this relationship, wanting it to be permanent. And as long as you were together, there was a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys broke up, the mind didn't understand impermanence. It didn't understand that this relationship was always impermanent. Ever since the beginning of it, it was impermanent. Because even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. So your mind was holding on and you were craving permanence. And the mind was now experiencing impermanence. And it didn't like that. So one of the ways to say this is, yes, the mind craves permanence. But another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. When things are changing in your life, the mind doesn't like that, right? Think back in your life to times where things have been changing. You've had a job change, maybe changed your living locations, your relationships were changing. When things were changing in your life, that was some of the biggest challenges for you in your life because the mind doesn't like change in the unenlightened state. It craves permanence. Right? So as long as you were in the relationship, you felt good to a certain degree. But then when you guys broke up, that's where the sadness and anger and loneliness and boredom and you were missing this person came in. You can see this too, like if you've had someone close to you die, like grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or brothers and sisters, you're not a bad person if you were grieving or feeling sorrow or sadness at this time of death. But what was causing that wasn't your love. It was the mind craving permanence. As long as grandpa and grandpa were alive, you were getting what you wanted. There was a certain amount of happiness there. But then when the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, the mind was experiencing impermanence, but yet it was craving permanence. Now the mind was sorrowful or sad. You can see this if you've been to a wedding and people were crying and grieving and upset, like maybe mom and dad or brothers and sisters, people like this, that this person's going off into the world with somebody else. And now mom and dad's mind is holding on, or brothers and sisters are holding on. And now this person going off into the world with someone else, the mind struggles with that. It might grieve and be sorrowful and sad. But hey, this is a great situation. This person's met someone that they can spend the rest of their life with. Oh, that's wonderful. If it's love, you'd be happy, you'd be cheerful, right? But that's not what's causing the painful feelings. What's causing the painful feelings is that this person is craving permanence, wanting this person to be in their life permanently. And now when they're confronted with this impermanence, that the person is going off into the world with someone else, the mind struggles with that. If you can think back to when you were a child, maybe you got dropped off at college or university, or maybe if you can remember when you got dropped off at school for the very first time, or if you've ever seen this where children get dropped off at school, they're crying and crying and crying. Even the parents might be crying, right? You're taking your kid, 3 years old, 5 years old, dropping them off at school. If it's love, well, this person's going to get an education. That's wonderful. You'd be joyful that they're going off to get an education. But no, the mind's craving permanence. And now when this child's going off into the world by itself, the parents might be crying or grieving. And the child might be crying and grieving because they thought mom and dad were permanent. And here they go off into the world by themselves and their mind's holding on. Right? So this is in relationships. You can see this. But let me give you an example without relationships so that you can see it even more clearly. Let's just say you got a brand new car and you've been saving up for this car for a very long time. And you've got the car of your dreams and you've driven off the parking lot of the dealership with your new car. And everyone's like, whoa, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's got a great car. Wow. And you feel so proud driving your new car. And now you park it at a parking spot and you go into a store and you come outside and there's a scratch on your car. You might be frustrated. You might be angry or irritated. This isn't from the scratch. The scratch isn't causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car that's making you angry. What's making you angry is you're craving permanence. The mind's craving for this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, it's not permanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This car is impermanent. But if you crave permanence, when you are confronted with this impermanence, the mind doesn't like that. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. But the fact is that this car is going to get damaged. It's going to get a scratch. It's impermanent. It's only a matter of time. So if your mind craves permanence and you see this impermanence, you're going to get frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. So one of the ways to see this is that, yes, your mind craves permanence, but it does not like impermanence in the unenlightened state. And you need to be able to see this for yourself. Because remember, none of these teachings are based in belief, right? So this is the intellectual part that I was just describing to you. But now move it into reflection. Take a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. Might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. What was it that you were craving? Don't look for other people. Don't try to blame other people, because that might have been what you were doing at the time. But now with this new knowledge and this new wisdom, this fresh eyes, look inward. What was it that you were longing, yearning for? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get what you wanted, you were angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. You should be able to see this. But if you can't, let me know and I will help you. Right? Maybe you showed up to the airport so excited to go to Thailand and you just couldn't wait to go there. And then when you showed up, they said, oh, your flight's delayed. And now you might have been frustrated or irritated or annoyed. It wasn't the airline company that caused that. That was the mind craving permanence. I want every single flight to take off on time, especially the ones you're on, right? Right? That's what the mind does. But the fact is that there's going to be a maintenance issue, a crew issue. There's going to be a weather issue. There is going to be impermanence. Every single flight can't take off on time. It's not possible. But if the mind craves permanence, when your flight's delayed, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Right? So you need to be able to see this for yourself so that you have the wisdom to be able to see that it's your own mind causing these feelings. Because that's what I'm explaining to you, is that it's your own mind causing these feelings. Because if you falsely believe that it's something external that's causing these feelings, what you'll tend to do is function unskillfully. When you think that it's mom or dad or brothers or sisters or friends or family members that are causing you to be angry, you will tend to push those people away. You might have done that where you've pushed away friends or family, or you've pushed away a certain situation. Right? This is called aversion, where the mind thinks that this person is causing me to be angry, and if I push them out of my life, then I will feel better. This is aversion, right? But you can see that that didn't solve your problem, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If that person was the cause of your anger and frustration, when you push them out of your life, you'd be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand this second noble truth, that you think the problem is external and something external is causing you to be angry or frustrated, is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And you're damaging your relationships here. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. The mind's trying to fear others into doing things your way, right? Or the third thing you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people and try to control people and force people to do things your way, pressuring them, right? This is the mind craving permanence, thinking if I can push this person or this situation away, if I can be bitter, harsh, and hostile and fear them into doing things my way, or if I can put my expectations on people and control them and pressure them to do things my way, I'll get what I want. I'll get my cravings fulfilled. But that doesn't solve your problem, because there's 8 billion people in the world, and you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. It's not possible. So you need to be able to see what the true cause of the problem is, which is this craving, desire, attachment within your own mind, the way the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after things. So there's a solution for this. And the Buddha explains in the third noble truth that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you get to the point where you can see that the cause of your discontentedness is craving, desire, attachment, well, if you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. You don't have to experience anger and sadness and frustration. You can eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And when you eliminate that, that's where the peace and joy is. And again, you can verify this. Think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys broke up, you were angry or sad or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing this person. But at some point, you let go. And when your mind let go and you no longer had that craving, that's where your peace and your joy came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. Or you were like, you know what? If she wants to live in another part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And when your mind let go, that's where your peace and joy came back. Right? So if you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, where you're not chasing, you will eliminate your discontentedness. But sometimes when I explain this, people think, well, if I eliminate that, wouldn't I swing all the way over here to the other side where I'm dull and lethargic and lazy and unmotivated to do anything? Well, it might, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you to do. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest, where you can have ambition and motivation and enthusiasm to work towards goals and objectives, but you're not forming your feelings based on whether you accomplish it or not. If you're chasing something and you get it and you're happy, and you don't get it and you're sad, that's actually not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. Some people will have something that they refer to as a goal, but they can only be happy when they get it. And if they don't get their goal accomplished, then they're angry or sad or frustrated. That's actually not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment masquerading as a goal. If you come to the middle, you can gradually work towards your goals and objectives without forming your feelings on whether you accomplish it or not. And you can make wise decisions towards that with ambition and enthusiasm and motivation. So what's going to help you to learn how to do this, where you can eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, is in the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth explains the path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to guide you in understanding how to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, where you're no longer chasing, and forming your inner feelings on this thing. But you're also not all the way over here where you're dull and lethargic and unmotivated and complacent. Right? That's not going to be producing peace and joy for you either. So there's this middle way. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you with the Eightfold Path, that you come to the middle and you gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. So I'm going to teach you right intention, but before I do, I'm going to open up for questions to see what questions you guys have on right view, which is the Four Noble Truths. Because establishing right view is so important. You need to be able to see that it's your own mind causing these feelings. Because if you have wrong view, you're going to be blaming other people for the feelings that you experience. And you'll never be able to fix this. You'll never be able to get to enlightenment because your mind's blaming other people and they're not the ones who are actually causing your feelings. So if you have wrong view, you will blame others for the feelings that you experience. But if you have right view, you will look inward. You will start to look inwardly to see, what am I longing, yearning for? What am I craving? What am I desiring here? So that's what I encourage you to do now and forever. Whenever you're discontent, instead of looking externally to blame other people, is look inwardly and try to figure out what your mind's longing, yearning for. Because if you can figure that out, you can get to peace and joy. I had a student one time, they contacted me and they're like, David, I know you always teach that it's my own mind that's causing these discontent feelings, but I just can't see it. I said, okay, what do you got? They said, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And when I came home about 8 or 10 hours later, my wife had this craft project all over the house and I got frustrated and annoyed. How did my mind cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? I said, no, she didn't. It was your mind craving permanence. You had a certain expectation, certain craving that you thought that when you went to work, your house was going to look exactly the same when you came back home. The only thing that's happened here is change. That's it. Now your house looks different. And this craft project that your wife has all over the house, she's going to put it away. That's impermanent too. And maybe you'll even help her to put it away, right? So you need to be able to see through your own experiences that it's your own mind that's craving, desiring, wanting, expecting things to be a certain way. And you can only be happy when you get it that way. And then when you don't get it that way, your mind gets the painful feelings. So if you can see this for yourself, then you can have this breakthrough that the Buddha talks about. So I'm just going to stop here and see if you guys have any questions, because if you do, I'll help you to be able to see this. You guys have any questions on this? Mm-hmm.
So David, you said we might move people or situations away from our life, or from our life, seeking that we would be happy or feel better. What about a situation that a person lies to you several times, and then after a while you don't trust this person anymore? And you decide to move away this person from your life, would this situation fit also in the mind craving permanence? Because I look at this situation like the other person breaks your confidence on him or her. So you're kind of trying to protect you from the lies because you don't want to deal with someone you don't trust anymore?
Sure. So let me help you understand this. There's something called aversion, where you're pushing away a situation or you're pushing away a person. But then there can also be a situation where you're making a wise decision to move beyond a relationship. From the outside looking in, it looks exactly the same. A relationship is ending. But depending on what's going on in your mind is going to depend on whether it's aversion or whether it's discernment, which is wise decision making. So if it's aversion, what your mind's going to do is when you experience the painful feelings, using your example, someone's lied to you, and now you experience painful feelings. Your mind, in this case with aversion, is going to think this person is the problem, and they're causing me to experience these painful feelings. And if I push them away and I move past the relationship, that's solved my problem. This is based in wrong view. And you haven't actually solved your problem here by just pushing this person away and moving on in the relationship, because you still have a craving for things to be permanent. But you could also be in this situation where you say, like you're saying, this person lied to me. This is unfortunate. I'm not interested in having people in my life that lie. I'm going to choose to move on from the relationship. But the difference is that if you experience any painful feelings as part of this, you understand that it's coming from your own mind, that it's your own cravings, desires, attachments that's producing this. And you need to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. In the first example, the person is blaming the other person for the painful feelings and thinking that by moving away from the relationship, they've now solved their problem, where they haven't. They haven't solved their discontentedness, which is the problem, because they still have the craving, desire, attachment. Just pushing this person away doesn't solve the problem. So you might choose to move past the relationship, but you need to maintain the right view that if there's any painful feelings or any discontentedness whatsoever, it's coming from your own mind, and now you need to eliminate that craving. It can still be wise to move out of the relationship, but you got to solve your underlying craving, desire, attachment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
It's a regarding of the option or selection or decision. It's not a good feeling or bad feeling, but it's hard to make a decision. Like in terms of small, not dramatic decision, like which hotel I go or which iPhone version I do. Many small, too many options in modern days. Do you have a wisdom for making because sometimes I feel small decision can change your course of in the long term. So I kind of want to learn how to make a wise decision.
Yeah. So when it comes to those kinds of things, it's going to come down to personal preference and through trial and error and experience. What the mind's doing when you're looking at all the criteria is you're trying to create a perfect decision. The mind craves perfection sometimes, and it wants the perfect environment for a hotel or something like that. And it's looking at everything, looking at all the reviews obsessively, and it's trying to crave this perfect experience. It's craving this permanence, where really what you can do is you can just look at a few things, make a choice, and realize that your experience at that hotel is going to be different than someone else's experience. So that's why I don't even really read reviews when I book these kinds of things. I might look at the rating overall, because if the rating is like a 1 or a 2 and they've had 500 reviews, it's like, oh, there's something going on here, right? But if it's like 4.8, 4.5, and there's like 3, 4, 5 people that are complaining and talking bad about this business, well, those people probably would have did that with any business, right? Because there was a certain expectation that they had and it didn't get met. And now they were angry and they thought that it was the hotel that was causing that anger. And now they have ill will towards the hotel and they're trying to damage the hotel's reputation. So I don't even really look at reviews very much when I'm booking things like this. I just know that I can have a great experience no matter what. And if I checked into a hotel and let's just say they're having a wild party that's going off until midnight, 1 a.m. or whatever, I'm just going to go down to the front desk and say, hey, I'm so sorry. I need to get some rest here. I can leave the hotel and go get another, hotel from somewhere else. And I'd be fine to do that. Would you guys be willing to give me a refund so that I can go do that? Right. I'm not going to try to change these 50 people who are partying it up. I'm just going to make a different decision for myself and go somewhere else and get my sleep. Right. So each situation is going to be different and there's not a perfect decision in every single one. But the more that you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, you'll be able to experience peace and joy no matter what situation you're in. And don't try to create that perfect decision, but just kind of look at things generally and be like, what do I think here? And then now you book your hotel or whatever it is, and just understand that it's going to be different situation in each one of those times that you stay at a hotel. It's going to be different than other people's experience because of impermanence. And then just make the decisions that you think are wise for you. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to share with you guys the next step. because we've talked about right view. And remember, establishing right view is that you need to not only see it intellectually, need to reflect on it to see that it's true, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, but you need to practice it. You need to practice day in and day out when you're experiencing discontent feelings, looking inward and trying to figure out, what is my mind craving, desiring? What is it longing, yearning for? Because if it's other people that are causing you to be discontent, you're perfect. Go home. You don't need to be here. Send everybody else to the temple, right? But you know that's not true, right? Your mind experiences discontentedness, right? So you need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because this is the foundation that everything else is built upon. Because if it was everyone else that was causing you to be angry, there's no work for you to do. It's everybody else that's the problem. That's what the ego is going to want to tell you, that it's everybody else is the problem, not me, it's everyone else. So the Buddha helps you at the very beginning, the very first teaching, to help you understand that it's the problem that you're experiencing is within your own mind, and your own mind is causing this. Because now you can build on that, and now you can go to right intention. It's not going to take me the same amount of time to teach you all these other factors as it does the first one. The first one, we really need to take our time. Okay. So here we've got right intention. Some people refer to this as right thinking or right thought. Okay. So here's what the Buddha says. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This is called right intention. So we've got three things here where you need to build the right thinking or the right thought, the right intention: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What the intention of renunciation is that you have the willingness to let go of your false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions and views, that you're willing to let go of your unwholesomeness. That's what right intention is for the intention of renunciation, that you're willing to let go. That's what it means to renunciate something, is to let go. Your false ideas, your false beliefs, your false opinions and views, and your unwholesomeness. Because if you experience anger, sadness, frustration, stress, anxiety, all these other feelings, there's certain lack of wisdom that your mind has. You have false ideas, false beliefs, false opinions, false views, right? So if you held on to those things and you're not willing to bring in wisdom in order to help you to cultivate that wisdom, you're never going to be able to experience enlightenment. So you're not getting rid of your false beliefs by bringing in new beliefs. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you how to bring in wisdom. And when you bring in wisdom, that you've independently verified this thing, and now you see it conflicts with the beliefs that you've had your whole life, you need to be willing to renunciate those, to let those go. Right? If you held on to those false beliefs, when you're confronted with this wisdom, you'll never actually get to enlightenment, because your mind's just going to keep having these same false ideas and false beliefs. The very first false belief that you need to get rid of and eliminate is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry. That's one of the first ones that you got to get rid of. You got to let go of that, because now you've got this wisdom from right view that's come in, and you can see, oh my goodness, I've been believing all along that everyone else was making me angry, right? You can look back over the course of your life, every single argument you were ever in, every time you were adamantly trying to convince that person to stop doing what you're doing, or else I'm going to continue to get angry. It was your own mind all along. It doesn't mean they weren't doing something unwise, because they surely could have been doing something unwise, but that wasn't what was causing you to be angry. It was your own cravings, desires, attachments. And you need to be able to see that truth, and you need to be willing to renunciate this false belief, this false opinion and false view, by bringing in this wisdom. And then there's certain unwholesome moral conduct that each unenlightened being has, that you're going to need to be willing to let that go. If you're not willing to let that go, you're going to keep causing harm through your moral conduct, and this harm is going to keep coming back to you. So that's the intention of renunciation. The intention of non-ill will is to eliminate this ill will. So non-ill will is a double negative. In English, whenever you have a double negative, it's a positive. So the Buddha is teaching you to have the intention of goodwill, right? Ill will is the animosity, the bitterness, the anger, the hatred, the frustration, the agitation, the annoyance, you need to be willing to let that go and eliminate it. You need to have the intention of non-ill will, where you have loving kindness for all beings, the thinking or the thought or the intention of having goodwill towards all beings. Then you need to have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm, where you have the thinking or the thought of not causing harm to others. Because as long as you cause harm, this harm is going to come back to you. This is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect. So as long as you're putting out harm, harm's just going to keep coming back to you. And how can you get to peace and joy if you just keep having this harm coming back to you over and over and over and over and over again, right? So these are the three intentions that you need to cultivate within the mind. The intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Now that's right thinking or right thought or right intention. So now I'm going to summarize this for you and see if you guys have questions. Right view is the Four Noble Truths. Understanding that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing your discontent feelings. That it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. That's right view. Wrong view would be to blame other people. If you're blaming other people for what you're experiencing, you'll never be able to cultivate wisdom and make different decisions to then experience different results. So you need to accept responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions, not blaming other people for the things that you're experiencing. Then there's right intention, which is the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false beliefs, ideas, opinions, and views, and your unwholesome moral conduct. And you have the intention of non-ill will, or the intention of loving kindness, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So this is the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. And this forms the foundation that we're now going to build on for the rest of the Eightfold Path. Do you have any questions on right view or right intention?
You said we need to have love, kindness, respect for all beings.
Mm-hmm.
How is it possible to have these kind of feelings, even though we know the law of karma?
Mm-hmm.
For someone who has done harm to other people,
Mm-hmm.
like someone who had murdered someone or
Mm-hmm.
raped or tortured, how is it possible us to build and have these feelings for everyone else?
Okay, so what I'm teaching you is not to have feelings, because feelings are conditional. So you're not having these feelings of respect. You're having a mental state, because a mental state is permanent. It's unconditioned. What you're used to is having certain conditions that if somebody meets these conditions, I will then like them. And if they don't meet these conditions, I will then dislike them. This isn't actually love or true love. This isn't what's going to guide you to these permanent mental states that I'm guiding you to be able to understand. So what you need to be able to do is understand that you can separate the choices and decisions that someone makes from the person themselves. So if somebody murdered my relative, I can still love the person while disagreeing with the choices and decisions that they make, right? Because I don't have an expectation that everybody should be a certain way. I understand impermanence, that some people are going to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful. They're going to be loving and kind, and other people aren't. And that's just impermanence. But I don't need to judge this person or look down on them or base my mental state, base my way I think of this person based on their decisions. I can choose within my own mind through training the mind to love all beings. But this comes with training. You need to be able to train your mind to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, where you're not wanting and expecting everybody to be a certain way. That's the craving for permanence. I want everybody to not murder, right? So you can have the aspiration for this. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever murdered anybody, but that's not the world we live in. That would be a permanent world. We live in an impermanent world where the vast majority of people, they don't commit murders, but there's some people in the world who do this. And it's unfortunate that they do it, but we need to get to the point where we don't judge them or look down on them or base our inner feelings on that. You need to get to the point where you can love all beings unconditionally, that there's no condition that someone needs to meet in order for you to love them. In the unenlightened state, people misunderstand what love is, that there's something that we might call conditional love, although there's no such thing as conditional love, that someone might say, I have fallen in love with you. And now they might say, I have fallen out of love with you. This isn't actually love. If someone's falling in love and out of love, that's not love. That's at the beginning of our relationship, you're meeting my expectations and you're doing things my way in the way I want you to do it. So I'm going to say I love you and I will function like I love you and I will tell you that I love you. But as soon as you stop doing things my way, I don't love you anymore. This isn't love. This is craving, desire, attachment masquerading as love. Again, we might call it conditional love, even though there's no such thing as conditional love. There are certain conditions that are being met that now the person is being kind and friendly, right? But what you're looking to get to is unconditional love, where you can love people unconditionally. You can be loving and kind and warm and gentle to everybody, even though they make decisions differently than you. And you understand that's their decisions. I wouldn't choose to do things that way, but they are choosing to do that way. And I'm just going to have love for them, meaning I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. You might not be interested in sitting down to dinner with this person. You might not be interested in having them be your roommate if they're a murderer, right? But you can still love them, meaning you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. But with your discernment, you're going to make decisions of who you choose to hire for your company or who you choose to be your friend or who you choose to live with. You're going to make wise decisions based in discernment, but you can still love these people. And that's going to allow your mind to have the permanent mental state of loving all beings and not judging them based on the decisions that they make. But this comes with training. We can talk about it intellectually, but you need to be able to train your mind to get to that point where it's functioning that way. And it comes through eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments, and arising your loving kindness for all beings. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you're going to see how to do that as we get further here in this eightfold path. When we get up here to the mental discipline, that's what's going to teach you how to do that. Right now, I'm just showing you this is what you need to do. This is the wisdom. Now I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay. All right. So I don't see any other questions anywhere. So it's basically 5 minutes after 11. We usually take a short break here to give you guys a chance to stretch your legs, use the bathroom, all that good stuff. So let's get back together in 15 minutes. 11:20, and I'm going to pick it up, helping you to understand the next part of the Eightfold Path. Okay, so thank you for your questions, and we'll see you after break. Okay, I'm going to pick things up where we left off since it's time to get restarted here. As we were talking before break, we explored right view and right intention. This forms the foundation of wisdom that you're now going to build upon in order to understand moral conduct and mental discipline. We're going to now be talking about right speech, right action, and right livelihood. And when we do, it's important to understand that what the Buddha is teaching you is the natural law of karma. He's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's not telling you how you should or shouldn't be in your life, because that's for you to decide. Instead, he's helping you to be able to see these natural laws so that you can be able to understand what's wise and unwise. So while we call this right speech, right action, and right livelihood, you might think about it as wise speech, wise action, and wise livelihood, because he's helping you to be able to see this cause and effect, or this action and result, the results of your decisions. That's what the natural law of karma is. It's not anything mystical or magical. It's not some black cloud that's following you around. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's about understanding that when you make a decision, that there's going to be a certain consequence or a certain result for that. And based on our moral conduct, that we will experience certain results. And when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you will tend to go out into the world and either speak or have bodily actions or a certain livelihood that is harmful without even realizing that that's what you're doing. Because of the lack of wisdom, the mind inadvertently goes out into the world causing harm. And then when this harm is coming back to you, what the unenlightened mind tends to do is blame it on other people. That this unwholesome thing that's happening, surely it couldn't be because of me, because I'm perfect. It's everyone else that's the problem. But that's wrong view, right? When you have right view, you understand like, oh my goodness, anything that I'm experiencing is coming from the decisions that I'm making. So what the Buddha is teaching you here is wise moral conduct that's going to help you to improve the way you interact with others so that you're not causing harm. And now what you'll see is as you increase your wise moral conduct, less and less harm is going to be coming back to you because you're functioning in a way that is wise. So this cause and effect, or action and result, or the results of your decisions, is the natural law of karma. It's your life, your decisions, and your results. If there's anything that you experience in life that you would rather not occur, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. So this moral conduct is going to help you to be able to understand wise decision making around your moral conduct. So essentially, like if you had an oil pipe that was spewing oil all over the world, you'd like to clean that up. You'd like to shut down that oil pipe and not continuing to spew oil all over the world. But that's what we're doing when we're practicing wrong speech, wrong action, and wrong livelihood. We're spewing oil all over the world and not even realizing it. So in order to clean up what you're doing within your own mind and in your own life, you're going to need to improve your moral conduct and the way that you're functioning in your day-to-day life. So first is right speech. And here's what the Buddha shares on right speech. He says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. Now remember, the Eightfold Path is here to help you eliminate all your craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. This speech that he's talking about here, it's all based in craving, desire, attachment. That's why he's teaching you to eliminate it. Because when we're lying, there's some craving that the mind has there. There's some longing, yearning that it has. And it feels like if I tell the truth, I'm not going to get what I want in this situation. So the mind lies in order to try to get what it wants. So in order to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, you need to eliminate the moral conduct that's being motivated by craving, desire, attachment in your mind, which is the lying. That's coming from craving, desire, attachment. And you can see that this lying produces unwholesome results in your life because people are going to discover your lies, right? And then they're going to find you to be untrustworthy, undependable, unreliable. And now your personal, professional relationships will really struggle. If you've ever done a lot of lying, you know that it takes a lot of work to keep all your lies straight. You got to figure out what you tell this person, that person. Your mind's kind of obsessively trying to figure that out. How can you ever get to peace and joy if you're trying to constantly figure out what you said to one person versus another? Your mind's almost obsessively doing that. So by eliminating lying and just telling the truth, your mind's going to be peaceful and joyful, because all you need to do is look inward and be like, what do we need to say here? Let me just speak the truth and what I know to be true. Then there's slander. What slander or gossip is where you're trying to diminish and degrade others in order for yourself to look better. This is also coming from craving, desire, attachment. The mind wants other people to look at you in a favorable way. So the mind thinks with its lack of wisdom is if I degrade other people, I will look better. But that's the lack of wisdom that the mind has. You actually don't look better when you're degrading and diminishing others. It's kind of like the mind thinks going into a dark room with a candle and everybody's got a candle, that if I put out everyone else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. But no, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright, right? We don't need to put out anybody's candle. Let's make sure everybody's candle is shining bright. But when we start diminishing others and degrading others through our slander and gossip, it makes us look bad. And we're thinking that it's making us look good, but it's actually not. And you will actually experience unwholesome results if you're gossiping and slandering. At the height of this, you can actually be murdered. That's the cause and effect. If you go out into the world damaging other people's reputation, you can get murdered. Remember, the Buddha is not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And if you go out into the world causing harm to others, people aren't going to be happy with that. The unenlightened mind is going to want to cause you harm. This is why you see like investigative reporters and people like this that oftentimes end up killed, right? Again, I'm not sharing with you the way the world should be. I'm explaining to you the way the world is. And if you get out there and you're damaging people's reputation, they're going to want to cause harm to you. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering, you're going to notice people gossip and slander about you, because these people that you're gossiping and slandering with, you've gotten them used to gossiping and slandering. So when your back's turned and you're over here doing something else, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you don't like people gossiping and slandering about you, you're going to need to eliminate your gossip and slander. And this is going to help you in your day-to-day relationships. Then there's refraining from harsh speech. Harsh speech is also coming from craving, desire, attachment. There's some craving, there's some longing, yearning that the mind has. And it thinks if I'm bitter and harsh and hostile to this person, I'm going to get what I want. It's kind of like fearing this person into doing things your way. So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Because when you're harsh and bitter, it's damaging your reputation. But if you can speak gently with your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, this is going to help you in all your relationships. And you speak different languages, so you're going to need to potentially, if you speak more than one language, to be able to look at all that different language that you speak and find ways to be gentle and warm and kind and loving and respectful in the way that you communicate with people. Because if you're harsh and bitter and hostile, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. And that's coming from your craving, your anger, and what's referred to as ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. Then there's something called frivolous speech, or sometimes people call it idle chatter. This is where if you or someone you ever been around, when you're in a conversation, it's kind of like yada 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 yada. Yada, 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 yada. It's like, it's not really a conversation. It's more like broadcasting, right? Somebody's like broadcasting to you and you're just sitting there for like 15, 20 minutes and there's no conversation whatsoever. If you were to do this, this is coming from your craving. You have a craving to speak. You have a craving to tell others something. And you're not interested in doing that because this other person isn't going to be interested in talking to you. And over time, as you do this with more and more and more people, people are going to be disinterested in speaking with you. They're just going to tune you out, and less people are going to be interested in spending time with you. So you would like to speak in a way that's beneficial, that's clear and concise, and leave space for other people to communicate and have a conversation rather than a broadcast. So this is the part of right speech that's in the Eightfold Path, eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And sometimes people just hang out there for a while and just work on that. As you do, you would like to get deeper into understanding the teachings of the Buddha. This is called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. As I mentioned to you, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching of the Buddha, but there's other teachings that plug into it and really kind of help you to more fully understand what it is you need to be practicing. So students will sometimes practice these 4 and get that going really well, but then more deeply you would like to understand the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. 5 factors of well-spoken speech and practice those closely. These are speaking at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time is also to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Because with craving, desire, attachment, you'll want to interrupt people. You'll want to jump in there and start talking. You're not listening in order to understand the person. You're listening to just jump in there and start talking to yourself because there's a craving. You're trying to interrupt somebody. And you know you don't like it when people interrupt you, so you're not interested in interrupting other people. Other part of speaking at the proper time is making sure your mind is prepared to speak. If you're angry and frustrated and agitated, annoyed, that's all that's going to come out. That you're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile. So if your mind is angry or frustrated, that's not the proper time to talk. You'd like to step back from the conversation, calm your mind down, whether it's a few minutes, few hours, few days. And then if you need to come back in and have a conversation, do it then. That would be the proper time. The other part of the proper time is making sure for the other person, it's the proper time. If they're angry or frustrated or irritated, it's not the proper time to talk. Anything you say, it's not going to be able to get in. Right? So say you live with a roommate or a life partner, and maybe you just got a notice in the mail that you guys are late on your rent and you're going to be evicted in 3 days if you don't pay your rent. Well, when they come home from work, if you just jump on them and start talking, oh my gosh, we didn't pay our rent, we're going to get that. That's not the proper time to talk, right? Let them come in, put their bag down, get some food, get something to eat, and then say, hey, is this a good time to talk? And they might say, sure, what do you have to say? And then that's when you share it with them. Or they might say, no, this isn't really good. I had a really challenging day at work. Can we talk about this another time? Well, if your mind doesn't have a craving and a desire, a longing, yearning, you can be like, yeah, sure, we can talk another time. How about tomorrow? Sure, let's talk tomorrow, right? Because you're not going to be able to solve it tonight anyway. So just wait till tomorrow and you can talk about it then and discuss it then, right? So you need to make sure it's the proper time, that you're not interrupting, that your mind is prepared to talk, and that the other person's mind is prepared to talk. Speaking the truth, this is the same one up here, that you're not telling lies. Not only that you aren't telling deliberate lies, that you're not spreading conspiracy theories and unfounded truths. Sometimes we hear things and then you just go out and repeat it because somebody else told it to you. You would like to be sure that whatever you hear, that you're independently verifying the things that you hear, and that you're not just repeating things because you heard other people say those things, right? You would like to be sure that whatever you say, that you've independently verified it and you know it to be true. And then speaking gently. This is up here as well, that you pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And again, there's certain languages that you guys speak that if you speak multiple languages, you're going to need to look at each one of those languages and figure out how to speak gently. Maybe you need to use sir or ma'am or thank you or please. You know, in the Thai language, it's really easy to be able to make sure you're speaking gently. If you notice, Thai people speak very gently when they talk. Right? They have all these words like ka and kap and nakap and kapom. They have all these really warm and loving words to really soften the way that they speak. You will very rarely see a Thai person speak very aggressive and hostile and bitter. That's because they're using these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, and you'll see that your relationships go a lot better this way when you're speaking gently. Then you'd like to speak beneficially, where you're clear and concise and precise in the way that you speak. Like, for example, if all of us were on a project team and we were going in to be able to talk with maybe our boss, to be able to help them to understand what it is that we're working on, we would like to be clear and concise and precise in the way that we speak, instead of just rambling chit-chat here and there, right? So you'd like to be beneficial. Speaking beneficially is more about the method of how you communicate versus the topic. It's not like there's some approved list of topics to speak about somewhere and that you can only speak about these topics. That's not what this is. It's more about the method of how you communicate, that you're clear, concise, and precise in the way that you speak. And then you'd like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. The opposite of that would be inner hate. If you speak with a mind of inner hate, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And this is going to help you to be able to have harmonious relationships. And if you can bring your practice up to this and speak that way for an extended period of time, you're going to see that things go really well for you. The places where you're going to be the most challenged in speaking this way is the people that you're closest to. Your life partner, your children, your parents, your siblings, people like this. You'll find it very hard to speak gentle with them because you have craving, desire, attachment. You're wanting and expecting them to be a certain way. And that's where you're really going to have to work at this and really tweak it over a long-term period. One of the things that I used to do when I was practicing this and bringing it up into my practice is I used to look at these in the morning before I would go out, right? After I meditated, I would look at these and then I would go out in my day. Maybe I've reviewed them for like 2 minutes and then I would have all my conversations, all my meetings and everything like that. And then at lunchtime, I would look at them again and I would say, speaking at the proper time, I didn't do that so well. I really need to work on that. I was interrupting some people today. Oh, speaking gently. Oh, when my wife called, I wasn't speaking so gently, was I? Okay, I'm going to work on that, right? So then in the afternoon, then I would work some more on it, right? So over a matter of weeks and months, I was tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. So you're going to need to review this regularly to be able to bring it up in the forefront of your mind to be able to actually practice it. But this is what you would like to practice. And as you're practicing this, you're going to be establishing what the Thai people refer to as barami. This is a Thai word. That in each individual village, there's kind of like village elders that people know that these people are very successful. And if you need help in your day-to-day life, you would talk to the village elders and get help. And when I say they're successful, I mean not monetarily necessarily. I mean that their relationships are successful. Sometimes when people think about success, they think about money. Anybody can go outside and make a bunch of money, but not everybody can have harmonious relationships. It takes a lot of wisdom to have harmonious relationships. So these elders in the village have barami. This means the one who people listen to. And you can establish barami, the one who people listen to. But if you're out there talking in ways that is causing harm and using speech that causes harm, people aren't going to be interested in seeking guidance from you and understanding. You're not going to be very influential in your community. So whether it's your friends, your family, or in your profession, you'd like to be influential. You'd like to be able to help people probably. And the way that you do that is to establish barami. And the way that you establish barami is by using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That you speak at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Now remember, these teachings aren't based in belief. The Buddha is teaching you the natural laws here, and these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of it or not. So you need to be able to independently verify this. You can look at these 5 factors, and you can see in situations that haven't gone well for you, in conversations that didn't go well, you experienced unwholesome karma in those situations, you can see that you and or the other person wasn't practicing these 5 factors. If you even missed one of these, there's the potential for the conversation to have not gone well. So look at a recent conversation that didn't go well for you. Were you speaking at the proper time? Did you speak the truth? Were you speaking gently? Were you speaking beneficially? And were you speaking with a mind of loving kindness? If the conversation didn't go well, you missed at least one of these, right? And you can independently verify that this is true. Because you can also look at the other side of this too. Because you've had plenty of conversations that have gone well. Maybe you were just at break having a great conversation with one of your classmates and you had a great conversation with them. That's because you guys were practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech without even realizing that's what you were doing. Because remember, these are the natural laws. They affect you whether you're aware of it or not. You were speaking at the proper time, or you were speaking the truth. You were speaking gently, beneficially, with a mind of loving kindness. And that's why the conversation went well for you. So now in the past, you have used the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in certain situations, but you weren't even aware that's what you were doing. So now what you do is you need to consciously bring these 5 factors to the forefront of your mind where you're practicing them regularly. And it's going to take some effort for you to get there, where you're practicing them regularly, but eventually it'll just be effortless for you. Because it's kind of like It's kind of like your mind has been upgraded. It's like upgrading to a new operating system, that you've upgraded your mind to be practicing these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. But when your mind is on this old archaic software, it's going to be cumbersome and the mind's really challenged. But if you work to bring your mind up to these 5 factors of well-spoken speech, you'll be able to now practice in such a way that's effortless for you. But you're going to need some other training to be able to help you, like the mental discipline that I'm going to talk about here in a moment. So while we talk about this as right speech, and that's what the Buddha taught, you might think about this as right communication, because we do many more things than just speak. Sorry about this. I usually don't get phone calls. I think it's a package. Watch this. I'll answer the phone, give you guys some impermanence. Hello? Oh, they hung up. Impermanence. So you might think about this as right communication. Okay? Right communication is to communicate in all methods using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So for example, if you only practice right speech and you went into a job interview and you were speaking really well, and now they were feeling really good about you and they were thinking that they're going to give you the job, but then they looked at your social media and you were being bitter and harsh and hostile and vindictive and having ill will, you're probably not going to get the job, right? So you would like your email, your text messages, your voicemails, all of this, your social media, to all be using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's what's going to ensure that you're experiencing wholesome Dhamma or wholesome results. So while the Buddha referred to as a right speech, which that's what he was teaching because that's all they had at the time, we might think of this as right communication, so that way everywhere we communicate is using these 5 factors. So for example, if you were really angry and frustrated and you went over to your keyboard and you're pounding out an email to somebody, that's not the proper time to communicate, right? Hit save instead of send. Because once you hit send and it goes out into the world, that's going to produce unwholesome karma for you. So if you hit save, you can come back to that email in a few hours or a few days and look at it and decide whether it's wise to send that out or not, right? So if your mind's angry, it's not the proper time to be sending out emails or Facebook posts or social media posts or anything like that. So would be wise for you to practice these in all parts of your communication. And as you're bringing your practice up to be practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, there might be situations where you have difficulties remembering these 5 factors, right? If you're talking on the phone to your mom and you're starting to notice that things are going a little bit haywire, you're not going to be able to consult your book, right? You're not going to be able to whip out that thick book and be like, hey, Mom, hold on a second. I'm getting really angry and I can't talk to you right now. I need to look at these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. You're not going to be able to do that, right? Because you're in the heat of the moment, maybe in your boss's office or something like that. So one of the things that I share with you is to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You still need to know the 5 factors. That's the natural laws, right? But between now and by the time you get to the point where you deeply remember the 5 factors, if you can at least remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations, this will help you. But ultimately, you need to know the 5 factors. So in this book, in chapter 5, I go in detail about each one of these 5 factors, explaining them in detail, because you can do a lot of harm through your communication and the way that you speak to people. So you would like to really work on improving this. And you can use this polite, kind, friendly, and respectful as a way to be able to help you as you're making your way towards the 5 factors. Then we've got right action. Okay. Right action is all about your bodily actions and how you interact in the world through your body. You can cause harm with your bodily actions. And if you cause harm, that harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to understand these natural laws around right action. And he puts 3 specific and very impactful ones here in the Eightfold Path. He says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here you've got three really big impactful ones: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. You're going to get more details on this tomorrow when I teach the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because this right here sounds a little bit black and white, and it doesn't give you a bunch of details. In the five precepts, the Buddha really expands this, and he gives you more elaborating details, more extensive amount of details to be able to understand these. So I'm going to help you to understand the 5 precepts tomorrow, and then I'm going to teach you how to relate it to your day-to-day life. But here, just understand that he's not giving you an exhaustive list. Notice that he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face, right? But if you understand this particular factor of the Eightfold Path, you know it's unwise to punch someone in the face because you're causing harm with your body. And now they're probably going to punch you back, or they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or family are going to attack you, right? So it's unwise to punch someone in the face. Notice he doesn't say, don't roll your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees. Well, airplanes didn't even exist during the lifetime of the Buddha, so he couldn't have given you an exhaustive list of everything that could cause harm. He's just cluing you into 3 really impactful ones, and then you're going to need to figure out all those different things where you could potentially cause harm with the body, right? So here, he's just helping you to understand some impactful ones, and we're going to explore this some more tomorrow with the 5 precepts so that you can understand more about it. But I'm going to give you a heads up about this one of sexual misconduct, because sometimes when people see that, they're a little bit confused. It's important to understand that the Buddha doesn't talk about same-gender relationships as part of sexual misconduct, because the Buddha is talking about harmful misconduct in terms of your sex, talking about having sex with minors. He talks about having sex against somebody's consent, like raping them or something like that. He talks about having sex outside of relationships you're committed in. If 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults are choosing to have sex, they're not actually causing harm to anybody at all. So whether it's a male and a female, or a male and a male, or a female and a female, if they're 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults, they're not actually causing harm to anybody whatsoever. And if you understand the universal truth of impermanence that I just taught earlier, then you understand that there's never been a time in human history where everybody had sex with the opposite gender. Not every man is interested in having sex with a woman, and not every woman is interested in having sex with a man. So there's some people that have sex with the same gender. This has been going on ever since the beginning of humanity. It was happening during the lifetime of the Buddha. It was happening when human beings first came into this world, and we know that because of the universal truth of impermanence. So we're going to explore this in more detail when we get to the 5 precepts, but I'd like to give you just a heads up so that you know that this doesn't include same-gender relationships. So if you are someone who has same-gender relationships, you're not causing harm to anyone, and it doesn't. It's not a wrong action, so to speak, because you're not causing harm because you're having loyal, loving, consenting sex with someone that you're choosing to have sex with, and they're choosing to have sex with you. So there's no harm there. So we'll explore this some more tomorrow with the 5 precepts. There's other things that the Buddha does teach about actions that can cause harm. He talks about like substances that cause heedlessness. Like if you have the action of putting substances into this body, it's causing harm to this being who you are. Or gambling. These are all based in craving. That's why he talks about these. So these are bodily actions that cause harm, but he never gives you an exhaustive list because it's impossible because of the way the world's changing. Then there's something called right livelihood. This is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. If you choose to sustain your life off of causing harm to others, that harm is going to come back to you. So here in the Eightfold Path, he says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. Here he's just saying something very general and very broad, because in his other teachings, he explores it more and he expands it for you. So that's what I've put here. I'm going to share with you what's called the first fold of purification for livelihood. But then there's a second fold as well. The first fold of purification is helping you to understand that there are certain livelihoods that you could do that would cause harm to others. And if you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, you're going to experience harm. So here he says, business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons are 5 livelihoods that are causing harm to others. And if you sustain your life off of that, then harm's going to come to you. Remember, None of this is based in belief. So you need to independently verify these. So I'll give you some examples. Let's just take one of these. I'll show you how to do this, and then you can do the others. Like substances that cause heedlessness. If I stood on the street corner and I was selling crystal methamphetamine or heroin or cocaine into the community, I'm causing harm, right? And now because of that, harm is going to come to me. With me standing on the street corner, I can easily get beat up. I can get murdered. I can get robbed. I can get arrested. I can get addicted to these substances myself. That's the harm that I'm experiencing because of the harm that I'm causing to the community, right? Because these people are getting addicted to these substances and they're going out and robbing and stealing and maybe selling their body to be able to give me the money that I'm using in order to sustain my life, right? So this is how you can independently verify these things. But remember that this natural law that the Buddha is teaching you, it's above and beyond the human laws. The human laws are imperfect because they're created by human beings. So a human, like our government, could say, you can work in that liquor store. We're not going to arrest you for that. You can be a cashier at that liquor store, right? But if you understand the natural law of karma, you might realize that that's unwise to do that because that's substances that cause heedlessness. And now those are the places that usually get robbed, people get beat up, people get murdered in those places, right? At the very least, you're going to be dealing with intoxicated clientele from time to time that are going to be coming in to purchase alcohol from you. And now you got to deal with this, right? How can you get to peace and joy if you're constantly dealing with intoxicated people, right? So you need to look beyond the human laws and understand that this is the natural law of karma, which functions at a much higher level than the human laws. So you could go through each one of these and you could see examples of how it leads to unwholesome results. And if you ever have issues doing that, then you can let me know. And you would like to have a livelihood that doesn't involve any of these 5. Then the Buddha teaches you how to perform a livelihood so that you can get to the point where you're having nothing but success and you're thriving in your livelihood. He teaches you to eliminate scheming, flattery, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. Because if you're doing any of these in your livelihood, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So for example, if I was a politician, if I was like the mayor of a town, but I was scheming, I was corrupt. Well, maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years into my career, people find out, they're not going to reelect me, right? And now I've just damaged my career and I have difficulty sustaining my life because now I've been scheming, right? This is the harm that I'm causing and this harm is going to come back to me. What flattery is where you're giving insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. And now people aren't going to be interested in buying things, right? Like, have you ever been to a place where you walk in and they're like, oh my goodness, that shirt looks so great on you. It really brings out the colors of your eyes. You know, I have these earrings that will go perfect with that shirt. Can you come over here? Look at these earrings. Oh, you're going to really like them so much, right? This is like flattery, just trying to flatter someone. If you've ever been in that experience, you're probably like, you probably may just walk out of the store, right? You don't even want to go look at the earrings because it just feels kind of awkward to be around that perhaps, right? So you're not interested in just flattering people to get them to buy things from you because they're going to be able to see through that and it's not going to produce wholesome results for you. Then there's hinting. Hinting is like not being clear and concise in the work that you're doing. So again, if we were a project team going to brief our boss, we'd like to be clear and concise when we go in there and talk about the project that we're on so that the boss can understand what it is that we're doing. We're not interested in just beating around the bush, so to speak, and not really being clear and concise in our delivery of our communication. What belittling is to degrade or diminish people like your coworkers, your business partners, your competition, your customers. If you are degrading and diminishing people in your livelihood, this isn't going to produce beneficial results for you. Sometimes people think this is the way to do business, that if you're in business, you would like to make your other competition look bad, and that's going to make you look good, and people are going to buy things from you. This isn't actually true. It's actually going to lead to unwholesome results for you. So if you have a competition, someone who's doing something, just share, I'm not sure what they do, but this is what I can do for you, right? Maybe you don't even know what they do. You just know that they're competition. So no need to talk bad about them. Just say, hey, I'm not quite sure what they do. If you'd like to go see them, you're more than welcome to. But if you'd like to work with me, this is what I can do for you, right? You don't need to degrade and diminish other people in order to make yourself look good, because it actually doesn't make you look good. So you'd like to be sure you're not belittling as part of your livelihood. What pursuing gain with gain is, this is how you basically pursue things just for money, that you don't really care about the product or service that you're participating in terms of your livelihood. You just want money, and that's it. You're just going there to collect the paycheck. You're not really motivated. You're not really enthusiastic about the work itself or any kind of purpose behind the work. You just want the money, and that's it. If you've ever had a job like this, maybe at the beginning you were really excited because you got all this money, you got this new paycheck and you're getting this big money, but then eventually that burns off. And now you're sitting there without any kind of real motivation or enthusiasm about the work that you're doing. So you would like to get to the point where you have enthusiasm and ambition and motivation in the work that you're doing, that you're not just going to a place for 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, just showing up for a paycheck. That's not going to create the peace and joy that the Buddha is guiding you to be able to create, because you're creating this peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. And you're going to need to make sure that you have more interest than just money for this particular livelihood that you're choosing. So the Buddha is helping you to get to that point where you have ambition and motivation and enthusiasm. You know, here in Thailand, there's people that do this, right? If you go out in Thailand, you're going to probably find some person on the street corner selling mango and sticky rice. There's some lady that's there that she went out, or maybe a man, or who knows, they went out in their mango grove this morning. They picked all their mangoes. They were having so much fun just walking through their mango grove, looking at each one of their mangoes and be like, oh, that one's ripe. And they brushed it off and put it in their basket. And that one's ripe, and put it in their basket, and they made their little sticky rice, and they came to the street and they set up their little street stall, and now they're sitting there slicing up the mango with a big smile on their face, serving you that warm sticky rice with the coconut over it, and they collect their little 40 baht, and they can't imagine doing anything else other than serving you that mango and sticky rice, right? So what you need to do is find your mango and sticky rice. What's your mango and sticky rice, right? That's going to be unique to you. And you're going to need to probably try some different things before you find your mango and sticky rice. Because that person who's selling mango and sticky rice, they didn't figure that out at 5 years old or 6 years old. It took them doing some other things first before they figured out what is it that they're really enthusiastic about doing. So you need to find your mango and sticky rice, and you'll have a great experience of providing this product or service to the community. And sure, you're making money, but it's not even really about the money. That 40 baht that person collects, they could probably care less about that. Of course, they need that in order to sustain their life, but they just really thoroughly enjoy doing what they're doing. And that's what you'd like to get to. That, of course, you need to make money, but this thing that you're doing in order to help the world, that you would almost do that even if there wasn't any money involved, that you enjoy it that much. Okay, so you need to find your mango and sticky rice. And this is what's called the first fold of purification. And this is what you would like to be able to get to as part of developing on the eightfold path and getting to practicing wholesome moral conduct. There is a second fold of purification beyond this. So if you're in between jobs, or if you're in a job that you don't particularly care for and you don't feel motivated and encouraged in that job, you might decide to look at the second fold of purification as well, where this is in volume 12, chapter 14 of our book series. You'll see both first fold and second fold of purification, where you'll see the exhaustive teachings of the Buddha and words from me to be able to help you understand right livelihood. But this is the first fold of purification. You'd like to be able to get to this point with your livelihood. And then from there, you can continue to do more and actually get to the second fold as well. Okay. So now just a little summary on the moral conduct. There's right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Okay, right speech or right communication is to make sure that you're not causing any harm in the way that you communicate, both verbal, social media, text, emails, any of this kind of stuff, right? You like to make sure you're not causing harm. Practicing eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And then practicing the speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. This is the 5 factors of well-spoken speech where you can establish barami, the one who people listen to, not causing harm to others, so then harm won't come back to you. Even when you're enlightened and you're practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech perfectly, there's going to be the occasional person who speaks to you that doesn't speak at the proper time. They don't speak the truth. They don't speak gently. They don't speak beneficially, and they don't speak with a mind of loving kindness. But by the time you get to enlightenment, that won't affect your mind. Right now, if someone's disrespectful or impolite to you, you probably get angry or frustrated. But that's coming from your own mind. You won't get to a point where there's never anybody speaking to you in an impolite, unkind, unfriendly, disrespectful way. Even as an enlightened being, you're going to have the occasional person who speaks to you in a harsh or bitter way. But your mind won't be affected by it because your mind doesn't have a craving for everybody to speak to you in a certain way. You understand that permanence is not possible. But you need to get to the point where you are practicing these closely, and you'll get to a point where about 99.9% of the time, people are speaking to you polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. But there's going to be that occasional person who doesn't speak that way, but your mind will still be at ease because you know that you're not causing that. Okay? Then there's right action, where you don't cause harm through your bodily actions. They should be harmless. Of course, the Buddha gives you killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, but you're going to need to look beyond that. Like right now, you're just sitting here listening to me. You're not causing any harm through your bodily actions. But if you are poking the person in the eye that's sitting next to you, you're causing harm, right? But the Buddha doesn't tell you about that because you can figure that out on your own, that it's unwise to poke someone in the eye. Right? So you'd like to practice right action, that you're not causing any harm through your bodily action. Then you'd like to practice right livelihood, where you're not causing harm through your livelihood, that you're sustaining your life in a way that you have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation, that you're not having business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons, and you've eliminated scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. This will help you get to the first fold of purification, and then from there, you can work on the second fold of purification. Okay, so this is to improve your moral conduct. When the Buddha would teach you right view, that was the very first thing that he would teach all brand new students. After they understood that, he would move right into moral conduct and teaching you how to improve your moral conduct. Because as long as you're out in the world causing harm through your moral conduct, you're just producing more and more unwholesome karma, and it's just going to keep coming back to you. It's that analogy that I use about the oil pipe, that it's spewing oil all over the world. Well, the first thing you're going to do is not go clean up the mess on the floor. You're going to shut down the oil pipe so that you don't keep spewing oil all over the world. So the Buddha would teach you to shut down this unwise moral conduct so that you're not continuing to spew oil or harm into the world through your moral conduct, because that's going to produce a ripple effect. When you put out harm's going to come back to you, and you would like to improve that through improving your moral conduct. And just understand it's going to take time for you to do this, particularly with the people you're closest to, your friends, your family, your life partner, your brothers and sisters, people like this, your children, if you have children. It's going to be a lot more challenging for you with them because you have the most craving. But that's why you need to do that work in those relationships to eliminate your craving. So any questions on the moral conduct section? For those of you guys online, remember you can ask questions through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. I'm sorry, whoever's in YouTube, I can't understand your question. If you would like to rephrase it, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so I don't see any questions anywhere. So we're going to move into the mental discipline section. This moral conduct section is great to know what's wise and unwise. That's great information to have, right? but it's going to be very challenging for you to implement it if you don't have the mental discipline to go along with it, right? Understanding that you need to not speak harshly and you need to speak gentle, that's great wisdom to have. But if you don't know how to train your mind and control your mind, it's going to be very hard for you to do that. So this is where I think the teachings of the Buddha really excel. He's giving you the wisdom of how to train your mind and discipline your mind so that you can speak gentle. So that's what you're going to learn in the mental discipline section. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing as I'm going to walk you through each of these factors: right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth into the full perfection of development." So he's talking about 4 things here called right effort, applying the effort to accomplish these 4 things: to prevent unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind, to eliminate unwholesome mental states that are currently in the mind, to apply effort to bring in wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind, and to apply the effort to maintain wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind. So I'm going to walk you through this with some examples so that you can see how to practice right effort. So this first one of preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind, if there's certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. A good example of that is killing another human being. That's probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. You have no interest in killing another human being whatsoever. And the Buddha is saying apply the effort to prevent those sort of things from ever coming into the mind, because those are things that are not currently in your mind, and prevent them from coming into the mind. Apply the effort, because once they come into the mind, then the mind's going to potentially act upon that. Okay, so you would like to get to the point where you're preventing that and applying the effort to do that. Then there's the second one, abandoning unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. So any unwholesome states that are currently in your mind, you would like to apply the effort to eliminate those out of the mind. An example of that might be if you're in an existing relationship and you're having a craving for sex outside of that relationship, you know that that's going to cause harm and cause unwholesome results for you. So you would like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. Then anger, frustration, or irritation. This is a good example too, that when you're noticing that coming up in the mind, you'd like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind, because it's an unwholesome mental state to have in the mind. Then there's producing unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There's certain wholesome mental states that aren't currently in your mind right now that you're going to learn about as part of this path, and you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into your mind. So for example, like generosity. Generosity is the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. This is like your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. Because what the mind does with craving, desire, attachment is it holds on and it becomes very selfish. It doesn't want to share with other people. So what you're going to need to do is practice generosity, where you're sharing with the people around you. And you might need to apply the effort to bring this into your mind. If you find it very difficult to share with others, then that means this generosity is not currently in your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to be able to practice this generosity. Because as long as your mind's holding on, you're not going to be able to practice this generosity and train it to let go. That's what the generosity is doing for you. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality into your mind if your mind doesn't currently have that. Then there's compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. On the one side of this is indifference, where you could care less about what's happening to other beings. You see someone that's struggling, maybe they're having problems with drugs or alcohol, or maybe they're homeless or having a lack of food, and you're just like, I don't care. It's not my friend. It's not my family. I don't care. That's indifference. You're not interested in living there. But on the other side of this is anxiety and worry, stress. Oh my goodness, that kid doesn't have food. How are they going to survive? Oh my gosh. And you're so stressed and anxious about this. Neither side of this is going to produce peace and joy in your mind. So you'd like to come to the middle where you have concern for the misfortune of others. This is the compassion, right? So if you don't have compassion in your mind, or you're on either side of this, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. Then there's the fourth one, maintaining wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. Okay, so this is wholesome mental states that you currently have in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to support them and encourage them, bring them to full growth and full perfection of development. So there are certain wholesome mental states that you currently have in your mind, but they may not be fully developed yet. So for example, loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind, which is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. But it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. That's why you get angry, and that's why you have ill will towards other people in some situations, because one of your cravings have been triggered, and now that ill will arises towards them. So it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring in this loving kindness, even when people do things that you disagree with. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. Or say something like sympathetic joy. You probably have sympathetic joy in your mind, where sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. So say somebody tells you, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. You might be like, oh, I've been to Thailand. That place is wonderful. You're going to really enjoy that. Hey, by the way, there's this lady with mango and sticky rice that's on the corner. You might decide to stop by and get some mango and sticky rice from her. It's really good, right? So you might actually have sympathetic joy in this situation. But it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development. Because now when you're at work and a new position opens up, it's a new title, new amount of money, new office, and you apply and some of your coworkers apply and they get the job instead of you, you might be jealous or envious. That's the opposite of sympathetic joy, where there's envy and jealousy in the mind. So where you see that your mind's doing that, that means your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development. And you're going to need to apply the effort to do that. So when this person's walking around the office and they're like, hey, by the way, I got that new job, blah, 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 blah. Even inside, you feel the jealousy and envy. You're going to need to bring up the right effort and be like, congratulations. That's going to be great for you and your family. I'm really pleased for you. Right? So inside, you might not yet have that mental state of sympathetic joy, but you're going to need to apply the effort to bubble that up. And over time, that'll get easier and easier for you. And that's how you bring this to full growth and full perfection and full development. Okay, so these are the 4 right efforts. You prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. You apply the effort to eliminate unwholesome qualities in the mind. You apply the effort to bring in wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind. And you apply the effort to support and encourage, bring to full growth and full perfection wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. The way I explained this to my son when he was very young is I taught him to kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome, right? That's what you're doing here. And you're applying the effort to do that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next one, because without the next factor, you wouldn't be able to apply right effort. You need the next one in order to apply right effort. The next one is called right mindfulness. This is where you're now going to be able to have the mindfulness to apply right effort. Without this one, you wouldn't be able to practice right effort. So here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. Okay? So here the Buddha is talking about four things: body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental objects as mental objects. I'm going to explain this to you because he's describing the four foundations of mindfulness. But first, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. Let me answer this. Sawadee krab. Hello. Okay krab. ปัจจุบันครับ น้องชายให้บาทครับผมครับผมพูดไม่ได้ครับผมครับสวัสดีครับ Okay, so let's talk about mindfulness, right? This is just in general talking about what mindfulness is. Then we're going to talk about the four foundations of mindfulness. What mindfulness is awareness of mind. Okay, you would like to just be able to understand what this means. It means having awareness of your thoughts, your ideas, anything that's going through your mind. Because oftentimes people are using this word mindfulness in a way that's not intended to be used. Sometimes people say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? The Buddha didn't use this word this way. Now, if other people choose to use it this way, that's a choice for them to make, right? It's not up to you to tell other people how they should or shouldn't think about this word. But for you, you would like to understand what mindfulness means. Mindfulness means awareness of mind, aware of your thoughts, your ideas, anything that's going through your mind. Because oftentimes we go through the world and we don't have mindfulness. We're just kind of plowing through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest, and then we smell smoke and we're like, who lit the fire? We look behind us, we see all these knocked down trees. We're like, what happened? Right? Because we don't have mindfulness or awareness of our mind. So you might just hang out there for a few months, just cultivating this mindfulness or awareness of mind. But ultimately, you would like to develop the four foundations of mindfulness. This is the body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental objects as mental objects. What the Buddha is going to teach you here is the life cycle that your discontentedness is going to take, because you have an early warning system that's alerting you that you're about to get the feeling of anger or sadness or frustration or any other discontent feeling. And you're going to notice it as a bodily sensation that you may or may not be aware of these right now. So for example, before you get angry, there's some bodily sensation that's occurring. You're noticing like tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull, right? This is the early warning system alerting you that you're about to get angry. And what the Buddha teaches you is with that mindfulness or awareness of mind, you then apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Because that's an unwholesome quality. And you know that if you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, it's going to become a feeling. That's the next part of the process, that it's going to become a feeling. So the Buddha isn't teaching you to suppress your feelings or to repress your feelings. He's teaching you to cut it off and let it go before it becomes a feeling. So these bodily sensations, it's like an early warning system. It's like the mind is saying, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling here. And you're like, nope, not going to let you do that. Right? Because if you allow the mind to get the conditioned feeling, it just stays wired that way. And it keeps doing that over and over and over again. It keeps forming its inner feelings based on some external circumstance. So you would like to prevent the mind from ever becoming angry or frustrated. You're not going to be able to do this right out of the box. It sometimes takes people a year or two even to build up to this point where you can notice these bodily sensations and cut it off and let it go. Some people even take longer, right? There's no competition here. But more and more, you would like to build this mindfulness where you're aware of these bodily sensations so that then you can cut off and let go at the bodily sensation, preserving the peacefulness and joy within your own mind. The way you might think about this is that if you were going to take a boat from Canada to the UK, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because if the water comes into the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get this water out of the boat, right? So you'd like to prevent it from ever coming into the boat, right? So that's what you're doing with your mind, is you're being aware of these bodily sensations and cutting off and letting go. Your mindfulness is essentially like a virus scanner. A virus scanner on a computer, it just sits there and looks at your hard drive. And whenever it sees a virus come in on the hard drive, it quarantines it, keeps it to the side, and then it cleans it up and it gets it off the hard drive, right? So your mindfulness is doing the same thing. It's just sitting there looking at your mind, noticing if there's any discontentedness is arising, right? And when you're noticing any discontentedness arising, you cut it off and let it go. Cut it off and let it go. Don't allow your mind to form that conditioned feeling. Because if you miss it as a bodily sensation, it's going to become a feeling. Now you're angry. Now you're frustrated. Now you're feeling guilty or shameful or lonely or bored or whatever. And now you got to deal with this. You got to get it out of your mind. And if you miss it as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. But if you miss it there, it's now going to affect the condition of your mind. That's the third foundation. That now it's going to affect your mind for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days. Have you ever been grumpy and irritable for like a week or two? Sure you have, right? Because you didn't understand this. None of us did, right? We were grumpy and irritable for a few days or a few weeks or something like that, right? Because we didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. We didn't even know that was a thing, right? And we didn't cut it off as a feeling, and then it affected the condition of our mind, right? And now if you allow that to continue, it's going to feed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. In this example, we're talking about ill will, right? That those 10 fetters that I'd introduced you to yesterday, those are all mental objects. Those were formed over time. We didn't have ill will when we were born, right? We didn't go into the nursery hating other babies, right? The conceit that we have in our mind, that was formed over time. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital like, man, my gloves are better than your gloves. My hat's nicer than your hat. My crib's better than your crib. We didn't do that, right? But as a baby, we didn't have all these mental objects like this. So over time, these mental objects got formed and now they're deeply rooted in the mind. So like right now, you're not angry. You're just listening to someone speak, but you've got that deeply rooted container of ill will in your mind. And if something gets triggered, that ill will is going to come up and now you're going to vent that anger and hostility at somebody. Right? So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is essentially put a blockade at the bodily sensations and cut off and let go there. All the while you're cleaning up your mind and getting all these mental objects out. You're purifying the mind of the mental objects. So you're going to need to have awareness of them. You're going to need to know what they are, the symptoms of them, how to eliminate them, and how to know that you've actually eliminated them, right? This is something that you learn in one of the retreats that I teach. I teach it each August. I teach you each individual fetter. We spend about an hour to an hour and a half on each one of these. So at the beginning, you're just working on developing awareness of mind or mindfulness. And then more and more, you start getting awareness of these bodily sensations and cutting off and letting go there. And then sometimes it's going to become a feeling because your mind's not well developed yet, and you're going to need to cut it off there. And sometimes you're going to miss it there. You're not going to be able to cut it off because your mind can't let go. And sometimes it's going to come and affect the condition of your mind. But you need to notice that, oh my goodness, for the last 30 minutes, I've been so frustrated and irritated. Let me get rid of this. You know, that person calling on the phone, you know, they're just trying to deliver a package. That's all they're doing. No need for you to be grumpy or irritable about that. You can just let that go, right? That you can just train your mind to let go. That's what the mindfulness is going to help you to do, is apply the right effort to see these unwholesome qualities and apply the effort to get rid of them, and then to see the wholesome qualities and support those, encourage them, and don't allow them to fade away. Okay? So this is right mindfulness. Now, you wouldn't be able to practice right mindfulness without the next one of right concentration. But before we move on to that one, let me teach you how to apply this in day-to-day life, because I just gave you the technical description of it. But let me show you how it plays out in day-to-day life. Let's just say you're watching the news and you're noticing the frustration. You're noticing it as a bodily sensation. It's tingling in the body. The chest is getting tight. The throat is getting tight. The face is getting heat and the pressure in the skull. What you should do there is apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. What you can do is turn off the news, redirect the mind, go outside for a walk, go for a bike ride, go to the kitchen and wash your hands, or go get a drink of water or something. Don't just sit there and watch the news and let your mind dwell in that. Right? Don't just sit there and allow the mind to form the conditioned feeling. So while you're in this training period, you're going to need to cut off and let go. You're going to need to redirect your mind so that when you're noticing those bodily sensations, you can redirect the mind and not allow the mind to form that conditioned feeling. And then over time, eventually, you'll be able to get to the point where you can watch the news and you'll just be completely comfortable and you understand, this is unfortunate. There's a war that just broke out. That's really unfortunate. Right? But you won't feel sad or angry about these things. So if you're noticing that and you're noticing it coming up, redirect your mind somewhere else. And eventually over time, your mind will get to the point where you don't have those cravings anymore and you'll be able to watch the news. But in the meantime, you're going to need to cut it off and let it go by redirecting it. So you're not going to be able to have this mindfulness without this next one, which is called right concentration. Now, I don't typically read this in this class, because what the Buddha is describing here is the jhanas. These are 4 preliminary phases that your mind goes through before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. Okay, so you're going to need to learn about these. This is where you're getting enhanced qualities of mind, but now's not the right time to learn that, because this is what you're going to experience as you're putting together all the factors of the Eightfold Path. You're going to start experiencing these qualities of mind. But what you need to know now at this stage is, how do I practice right concentration? Because that's what the Buddha teaches in other parts of his teachings, is how to practice right concentration. So let me share that with you, of how to practice right concentration. And then at a future date, in a future class or course or retreat, I'll teach you what the jhanas are. But for now, let's just focus on how to practice right concentration. There's 2 parts of it, which is developing a meditation practice and practicing singleness of mind in day-to-day life. Developing your meditation practice is to develop a breathing mindfulness meditation practice, which is what you're doing in this course. And then there's a loving kindness meditation, which I teach you in the Harmony and Relationships course and in some of the other programs too. These are the 2 meditations that are the primary forms of training in terms of meditation. There's 2 others that you're going to need to know as well eventually. I'm going to introduce them to you this afternoon, but you really focus on breathing mindfulness meditation first. For about a good 4 weeks or so, you would like to be working with that and just training your mind to develop that practice. 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes. But it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of practice. So you're not in a race or a competition with anybody. Wherever you are now, that's where you are now. And then just slowly build it up from there. So what the breathing mindfulness meditation is, where you're focused on the breath, and whenever your mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring your mind back to the breath. That's building your mindfulness or your awareness of mind, and that's building your right effort to apply the effort to cut off and let go. You're building this mechanism within your mind to be able to let go. Let go, let go. So your goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Your goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. This is what's going to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And then your loving kindness meditation, that's going to help you eliminate your anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions, even the slightest dislike towards others. So that person who murdered someone, you'll be able to get to the point where you have love and kindness for them. And that comes through training your mind with these meditations and other teachings as well. So there's other specialized meditations as well, but we're going to talk about this more this afternoon. The other part of practicing right concentration is to practice singleness of mind in day-to-day life. That's where you just focus on one thing at a time. Sometimes we're taught to multitask, but the mind actually can't multitask. You can't do more than one thing at a time. So if you're talking to your mom, you're watching TV, and you're eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all three of those things at one time. You're actually talking to your mom for a few seconds, you're watching TV for a few seconds, you're eating your sandwich for a few seconds. Your mind's racing around from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And if you do this regularly, like at work, for example, when you get home, you'll find it very challenging to rest and relax. You'll have a lot of stress and anxiety. It's kind of like a racehorse. If you've been to a racetrack, they'll race around the track, but when they go to the barn, they can't calm down. They're all hyped up because they've been racing around the track. Right? So if you do that with your mind, you're not going to be calm and peaceful where you're racing around. You like to just do one thing at a time. And if you literally are talking on the phone to your mom and doing all these other things, you can't bring forth your full wisdom and concentration to practice something like right speech. That's where you're going to slip up. You're going to say something that you regret later. And now you got to go back and say, Mom, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I know yesterday when I talked to you, I said this and that. I really shouldn't have said that. That's really unwise of me, right? So you think you're actually being more productive, but you're really not, because you're making more work for yourself, because you're stumbling over your feet. And maybe your mom even shared some things that she'd like you to do, and you agreed to it. You're like, yeah, I'll do that for you, Mom, no worries. But now you forgot when you got off the phone because you don't have concentration. You can't focus. You can never remember what it is that you agreed to. So now you got to call her back for that too. Mom, what was that I agreed to again? I'm so sorry. I forgot all about that, right? So you're actually spending more time, because this phone call could have been like 15 minutes, but it ended up being 45 minutes or an hour because your mind was going around and wasn't focused and wasn't concentrated. So you like to just do one thing at a time. So if you're washing dishes and your mind's wandering, you like to cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're in a business meeting and your mind's wandering, you like to cut that off and bring it back. Or if you're at the temple and you're thinking, wow, it's lunchtime, we haven't gone to lunch yet, and you're thinking about that mango and sticky rice, cut that off and let it go and bring it back and listen to what's going on in the class, because that's where you're productive, right? Focusing on one thing at a time. Because if you're washing dishes and thinking about something else, you can easily cut yourself, right? And you got to go to the hospital. You got to spend money. You got to spend extra time, right? You like to just do one thing at a time. The way you might think about this is that if there was a piece of wood and there was a steel rod and you were grinding this steel rod back and forth, at the beginning, it's going to be bouncing around a lot because there's no groove yet. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a nice groove going. And when it pops out, you're going to know that it's popped out, and then you can bring it back, and now you can start grinding away again. But eventually, if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove, and eventually it's never going to pop out because it's just going to stay in that groove. Your mind is the same way. When you first start training with singleness of mind, your mind's going to be bouncing around a lot. But if you get a nice groove going where every time you see your mind moving, you cut it off and bring it back and focus on whatever it is that you're doing, eventually you'll have more concentration within your own mind. And your mind will just stay there where it's focused and concentrated. Okay? So this right concentration is developing your meditation practice and singleness of mind. And that's going to help you to have mindfulness or awareness of mind and apply right effort. So that's what we were talking about here, is applying right effort is to take the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. You're not going to be able to just sit back and these wholesome qualities are just going to pop up in your mind. And these unwholesome qualities aren't just going to naturally be eliminated and fall away out of your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do this. And then your mindfulness, you're going to need awareness of mind, and more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of those bodily sensations, the early warning system, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. You're going to need to build awareness of that. And what's going to help you to do that is your right concentration, practicing meditation, the breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, and then practicing singleness of mind, that whenever you're doing something, if you notice your mind is wandering, cut that off and bring it back, right? So you can just focus on one thing at a time. Okay, so any questions on this mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path? I mentioned lunch, so you guys are probably thinking about lunch, right? All right. Okay. I don't see any questions online either. All right. So we're going to take a lunch break. It's basically 12:30. Can we take an hour and 15-minute lunch break today? Is there anybody who's craving an hour and a half? No? You guys aren't angry that we're only going to do an hour and 15 minutes? That's independently verifying the Four Noble Truths, right? Because if you had a craving for an hour and a half and there was only 1:15, hour and 15 minutes, you'd be angry, you'd be frustrated. But you're not craving that. So you can see your mind's peaceful and joyful. Okay? So we'll get back together at 1:45, which is essentially about an hour and 15 minutes from now. So enjoy your lunch and I'll see you afterwards. Okay? Thank you guys so much and we'll see you after lunch.